We're going live. We're a little early because tonight the GOP lesser-known debates are going to be happening at the same time. Donald Trump will be having a rally, and we're going to do both. We are going to show both. We're going to comment on both the GOP debates and Donald Trump's rally. And I have a feeling we're going to be like, oh, that was a good thing Trump said. And then we're going to go back to the GOP debates and be like, wow, that was a really stupid thing that they said. But it is what it is. Welcome to politics, everybody. We all know that these people who are in the lesser-known Republican debate aren't going anywhere near the White House unless it's going to be in some kind of cabinet position, if that. And that might just be like maybe Vivek Ramaswamy, but we'll talk about that. And then we're not going to have any big, we're not going to have a members-only show tonight. We're going to actually just do Super Chats after the debate ends at 10 p.m. But before we get started, my friends, go to timcast.com, watch Infringed. If you haven't already, you don't want to miss it. It's nearly 2 hours long. It's an hour and 40 minutes. So you are getting you're getting bang for your buck. Lauren Southern, John Dutoit were on the show last night. This is a documentary exploring the perspective of many people who are working on guns, who produce gun content. And it's all about defending our right to keep and bear arms and explaining the issues, explaining what governments do, explaining why these laws don't work, and explaining why you need to be able to defend yourself. So I think for a lot of people, if you know somebody who's into gun control, show them the documentary. Have them watch it. Ask them what they think. They might be like, pull some liberal, I don't want to watch it. But we've put $100,000 into marketing so far. And we're probably just going to go nuts and just dump a ton of money into promoting and pushing this documentary because it's about winning the culture war. So smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. We're going to be making fun of Republicans tonight. Joining us tonight to help us in that endeavor is Robby Starbuck.
Good to see you guys.
Welcome to the show. Who are you? What do you do?
I am a podcast host. I've got a documentary coming out called The War on Children that'll be out later this year. Very excited about that. And I have the honor of being on the list of the top misinformation spreaders with you.
Oh, that's right. Me too. Me too.
Yep.
Right on. Well, thanks for hanging out. It's going to be fun. We got Phil.
Hi, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I am the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm a very failed musician, anti-communist, and counter-revolutionary.
I do think it's sooner or later someone who's like never heard of you and like, oh, that's really sad that he failed.
There are people that have been tweeting, dude, why do you say that? You're so successful. Blah, blah. And usually I just go ahead and I send him the clip of Hassan making a little post.
You're just humble.
You gotta show the clip of Hassan saying it, and you got to play the Curb Your Enthusiasm music with you on stage before Metallica.
Yeah. I'll see a commenter once where they're like, oh, that's Phil. Like they realize who you are after watching you, and they're like, 2 weeks got me through the breakup. It saved my life. Yeah. It's a lot of people.
That song and there's a couple others that have really touched some people, and I'm really, really humbled every time I hear it. So
I hope to one day have a story like that. That is very impressive, Phil. I'm Ian Crossland. Happy to be here, guys. Serge, talk to me.
I'm Serge.com. I'm going to adjust your camera there, Phil. It's a lot of focus.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Let's get into it, though. Someone whenever you're ready. Unless you want to take the chair.
Yeah, that's okay.
Don't worry.
Well, I don't know. Maybe that worked.
Yeah,
look, we're a minute and a half out from the RNC debate. So we went live early because usually when the debate starts right at 8, we're like, quick, we got to rush. We got to rush it starting. So we're chilling. We got a minute. Countdown. How you doing?
It's been a good day. We are engaging in war in the Middle East again.
Oh, yeah. We're bombing Syria.
It was F-15s.
7 Nashville police officers, I think it was. They got suspended. Is that what happened?
Which is a horrible, horrible development.
Horrible. Being from there, very upset about it. These officers should be getting commendations for trying to tell the public the truth.
From where? Where are you from?
Nashville.
From Nashville,
yeah.
Middle Tennessee. Yeah.
Yeah, really?
So, I would say there has been so much hubbub made about this in so many different ways by the left trying to stop the public from finding out the truth. The fact that 7 officers were willing to get involved to the degree that they must have to be suspended tells you a lot more about the left's apparatus to try to shut people up and not trust the public with the truth. The reality was this was always going to be better if you rip the Band-Aid off, you give the manifesto to the public, you let the public have the discussion, because it is going to happen one way or another. You want to drip it out, it's going to be worse.
Yeah, I made a comment, I think a few days ago about it, where I was like, let's just remember it's about the danger of racial supremacy. It's not about white or black, but like the truth is, if you pour a lot of like white people are bad, it's in like the only way to combat racism is with racism mentality. You get more racists, and I think this is an example of that. It's really, really disturbing.
Looks like debate on?
Looks like the debate's coming on now.
There we go.
Oh, I'm so excited for this.
Here comes the B
to make
team.
their case
Yeah.
on why they're
I
prepared
am
to be
not.
commander-in-chief amid 2 wars on the world stage.
Luke Rudkowski's
How they
there.
plan to tackle stubborn inflation and
He's
how
there with
they
Josie.
can unite
They're
a
there to
deeply
boo New York
divided
Times, they say.
electorate. Who is
I mean,
best to
I
take
can't
on
get
President
on
Biden? And can any of them first beat former
Biden
President
cannot be
Trump,
the nominee.
who's
So
far ahead?
we had that election, several elections the other day. Democrats did pretty well. People are freaking out. They're like, fire Ronna McDaniel. Democrats are freaking out too. They're like, this doesn't mean anything good for Biden. In fact, it shows that what Jonathan Chait argued is the Democrats actually could win this, but Biden will tank the Democrats if he's on the ticket.
They're going to replace him 100%.
Absolutely.
I've been saying it for 2 years. They'll replace him with Gavin Newsom. He's already running a shadow campaign right now.
Yep.
He was
No
in
question.
China.
It's why he named that lady to the Senate seat in California, because she was the head of Emily's List, which is one of their best activist arms on the left. That secured the promise that they will support him becoming the new nominee. I guarantee it. He's going to be the guy.
Yep.
And they are correct about that. Biden is much weaker than the other Democrats.
We have to. I'm wondering how they removed. Right now, the talking heads are just pattering, so we'll just let them
Pitter patter.
pitter patter,
Ditter datter.
But until we get to the actual questions
Meat
here,
and potatoes. Who do you think's going to win?
Republican primary voters
Win?
Nobody? The people who didn't watch, I think they're going to be the winners.
The people that are watching Timcast tonight, they're watching
Yes,
us
exactly.
comment and
Watch
be
us make
snarky.
fun of it.
That's right.
Those are the winners.
Someone suggested this is Chris Christie and Tim Scott's last night on the stage.
I think that that's my personal opinion, but tonight is likely to kind of be the ushering out of Tim Scott and Chris Christie if they don't make some kind of serious move. And I don't see either of them making a serious move. I think that the real show tonight is
us making fun of them.
yes,
Yes, 100%.
The people there are most concerned with Nikki Haley and with Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis needs to solidify that he should be in first place. In second place behind Donald Trump, and Nikki Haley is looking to knock him out.
I'll just say it. I said it earlier. The fact that Will Chamberlain is not running his campaign is evidence the man is too stupid to be president.
Yeah,
Will's
Will,
a smart guy.
He should.
Because Will was working for him. Will's not working for him now, and Will put out this long argument, calm and rational, without attacking Trump supporters about why he thought Ron was the guy, and he just gets look. The DeSantis people are getting vicious. Will is keeping it calm. And they did not utilize him. They instead put their morons in charge. Let's jump into the debate. Here we go.
Republican primary voters as his legal challenges mount. Governor DeSantis, let me begin with you on this one. Speak to Republican voters who are supporting Donald Trump. Why should you and not him be the Republican nominee to face Joe Biden a year from now?
This country is in trouble, and the elites that have put us here, they don't care about you. They don't care that you're having to grapple with higher grocery prices or have higher gas prices. They don't care that your family's less secure because of the open border that's allowed drugs and even terrorists to come into this country. Well, I care. I am not going to sit idly by and let this country continue its downward spiral. We need leadership, and we need it now. I'll take the hits. I'll take the arrows. I'll take the slings, because ultimately it's not about me. It's about you. I will fight for you. I will make sure to lead this country's revival, and I will win for you and your family. Actions speak louder than words. We don't have time for excuses, and it's not something that we're going to be able to have all these distractions. As a veteran, I will get the job done. Now, if you look where we are now, it's a lot different than where we were in 2016. And Donald Trump's a lot different guy than he was in 2016. He owes it to you to be on this stage and explain why he should get another chance. He should explain why he didn't have Mexico pay for the border wall. He should explain why he racked up so much debt. He should explain why he didn't drain the swamp. And he said Republicans were going to get tired of winning. Well, we saw last night, I'm sick of Republicans losing. In Florida, I showed how it's done. 1 year ago here, we won a historic victory, including a massive landslide right here in Miami-Dade County. That's how we have to do it. So I promise you this, as the nominee, next November I'll get the job done, and as president, I will deliver
Your time
for
is
you.
up. Let me turn to
Everyone is
Ambassador-
spamming high heels and boots in chat.
You don't take slings, by the way.
to Ambassador
Slings
Haley.
throw
Why
bullets.
you and not the former president?
Well, I think you look at the fact that we're almost $34 trillion in debt.
60%
of
Look at her
Americans
mouth.
are
What's
living
going on?
paycheck to paycheck. 50% of American
looks like
families
lag.
can't afford
Yeah.
diapers. 1 in 6 American families can't pay their utility bills.
Did
You
Ron have
have
lag?
parents who are worried about what's being said or taught to their child in the classroom. There's
No,
no
her mouth's moving weird,
transparency.
dude.
We have anti-Semitism all over our college campuses, and students feel unsafe.
He's talking like
You've
this.
got an open
Yeah.
border where terrorists can come through, and we've got wars happening all over us, and there are dangers around us.
All over us.
Everybody
I know,
wants to
all
talk about
over us.
President
Covered in
Trump.
them.
Well, I can talk about President
War
Trump. I
bukkake.
can tell you that I think he was the right president
Family-friendly
at the right
film.
time. I don't think he's the right president now. I think that he put us $8 trillion in debt, and our kids are never going to forgive us for that. I think the fact that he used to be right on Ukraine and foreign issues, now he's getting weak in the knees and trying to be friendly again. I think that we've got to go back to the fact that we can't live in the past. We can't live in other headlines. We've got to start focusing on what's going to make America strong and proud. And that's what I'm focused on doing.
has big
Let's
teeth.
make sure we pay down our debt. I think we need an accountant in the White House. Let's make sure that we have transparency in the classroom. As a mom, I know what that means. Let's make sure we secure our borders so that our families are safe. Let's get crime down because our families want to know that they can be safe no matter where they go. And as the wife of a combat veteran, I will tell you, a military needs to know we have our back, and we need to make sure that America is strong.
Ambassador,
How does
thank
she
you
talk
very
like that with her teeth not opening her mouth? She's
I don't
talking
know.
like this, you know what I mean?
The
Does look
majority, of
difficult.
the majority of
Let me just,
the Republicans up
let me
here,
just
when it comes to
caution the
domestic
audience,
policy,
let's not
I don't
go
think
this
that they're going to
road.
have anything that I would be
Keep
strongly against.
restraining
But
yourselves, it would be helpful. So you can hear the
her
debates because these are
foreign
important
policy
issues
is completely and totally out of the question.
Oh, yeah.
Completely out of the
Ramaswamy,
question.
let me turn to you.
Here we go,
Please
Vivek.
make your case. Why should you be the nominee and not the former president?
I think there's something deeper going on in the Republican Party here, and I am upset about what happened last night. We've
I was
become a
hoping
party
somebody
of
would mention that.
losers at the end of the day. It was a
Ron did too.
cancer in the Republican establishment. Let's speak the truth. I mean, since Ronna McDaniel took over,
Yeah,
as chairwoman
call
of
her
the
out.
Yes.
Call her
2018, 2020,
Yes.
2022,
Yeah.
no red wave that never came. We got trounced last night in 2023. And I think that we have to have accountability in our party. For that matter, Ron, if you want to come on stage tonight, you want to look the GOP voters in the eye and tell them you resign, I will yield my time to you.
Yes.
The people who are cheering for losing in the Republican Party.
Yeah.
Think about who's moderating
Yes.
this debate. This
Can
should
we
be
please
Tucker
get a camera of
Carlson,
her
Joe
face?
Rogan, and Elon Musk. We'd have 10 times the viewership, asking questions that GOP primary voters actually care about and bringing
right,
more
though.
people into our party.
Totally.
You think the Democrats, and we've got Kristen Welker here, you think the Democrats would actually hire Greg Gutfeld to host a Democratic debate? They would do it.
That's great.
So I'm going to use this time because this is actually about you in the media and the corrupt media establishment.
man.
Asking
Wow.
you the Trump-Russia collusion hoax that you pushed on this network for years.
Wow.
Was that
Yes.
real or was that Hillary Clinton made up disinformation? Answer
Good
the question.
on you.
Go.
Whoa.
He is on
Good for you, Vivek. Whoa, did he just knock
Accountability,
what's her name
because
out of
this media
second
rigged
place?
The 2016 election. They rigged the 2020 election with the Hunter Biden laptop story.
Mr. Ramaswamy,
And they're going to rig this election.
your time is up.
Accountability.
Let me turn to
That's
Governor
what we're
Vivek.
Christie.
Wow. Honestly, maybe the best line out of all the debates that there's been was
Wow.
that.
time is just
Yes,
beginning.
that's the best opening of a debate I think I've seen in my whole life.
Governor Christie, why you and not former President Trump?
Look, you said it at the beginning of the debate. We are dealing with extraordinarily important issues facing this country right now.
Wait, are those
We
crumbs
have
on
our
his
greatest
shirt?
ally in the Middle East.
I made you all
under
look.
fire from a terrorist group that has
It was
committed
believable.
Of course it's
to
believable. Look
wiping
at that man.
them and every Jewish person in this world off the map. We have Ukraine with Vladimir Putin, a communist KGB dictator who wants to put the old band back together. He's starting in Ukraine, and he's going to move to the Baltics and Poland after that.
No, he's not. We
have inflation
clown
in this
show.
country
Clown
that
show.
is choking.
That is
choking every
ridiculous.
American family that wants to try to rise up and give their children a better life. And tonight, we need to decide which president is going to be the one to tackle the big issues, who's going to make this country look once again, not just inward, but look outward at the world and say America is the country, the indispensable nation that makes this a safer world And in a safer world, American innovation, American hard work has always been the thing that has driven our country to greater things. I'm going to be the president
Of
who
a
will do
buffet.
those big things. We're not going to be small, and I'll say this about Donald
We're not going to
Trump.
be small.
Not gonna be
Who's gonna
small.
be
No,
spending
we
the
are
next year and a
not.
half of their life focusing on keeping themselves out of jail and courtrooms cannot lead this party or this country,
All right,
and it needs
Governor.
to be said plainly.
Governor, thank you. Let me turn to Senator Scott. Senator Scott, you've said former President Trump can't win. Make your case to Republican voters.
Well, certainly. What I would say without any question is that the truth of my life destroys the lies of the radical left. We need a president and a candidate who will actually help our base solidify and attract independent voters into our party. The Great Opportunity Party is now winning back African American voters and Hispanic voters because we are working on a foundation based on faith. Our nation is facing some deep challenges. It is the loss of faith in this nation that is a part of the erosion that we're seeing every single day. It's restoring faith, restoring our Christian values that will help this nation once again become the city on the hill. When Ronald Reagan talked about the city on the hill, he was coming from Matthew 5. When President Lincoln talked about a house divided, that was Mark. Our founding documents speak to the importance of a faith foundation. You don't have to be a Christian for America to work for you, but America does not work without a faith-filled Judeo-Christian foundation. I would be the president that helps us restore faith in God, faith in each other, and faith in our future. Without that focus, none of the issues, the policies matter. We have to get back to being a nation that is, in fact, the city on the hill, that believes in each other enough for us to fight for that future.
I hate
it
when they talk like this. I just want to say real quick, Vivek didn't answer the question about why he should be the president over Trump.
Oh, yeah.
Just showed us why.
Because, well,
Exactly.
it's an impossible question to answer if you don't want to piss off the Trump base, but he knows how to answer the question in a political way.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I think
100%.
Ian's right. He just demonstrated. He demonstrated the kind of leadership, the kind of aggression, the kind of confidence that you want in someone that would be commander in chief.
And didn't anger Trump if he wants that other slot.
He actually was
agreed with him.
helping Trump.
Yeah.
To do at this moment.
Here we go.
Governor DeSantis.
I would be telling Bibi, finish the job once and for all
Holy.
with these butchers.
Whoa.
They're terrorists.
Wow.
They're massacring innocent people. They would wipe every Jew off the globe
Ron
if
just
they
lost
could. He cannot live
tons of support.
with that threat right by his country. That Hamas should release every hostage and they should unconditionally surrender. I'm sick of hearing the
I
media.
agree with
I'm
that,
sick of
but-
hearing other people blame Israel just for defending itself. We will stand with Israel in word and in deed, in public and in private. And I can tell you, as governor, I actually did something about it. Biden's neglect has been atrocious. We had Floridians that were over there after the attack. He left them stranded. They couldn't get flights out. So I scrambled resources in Florida. I sent planes over to Israel, and I brought back over 700 people to safety.
I respect that.
There could have been
that was
more
great.
hostages
Absolutely.
had we not acted.
The lack of
I'll tell you this, I
specificity
met
in the
first
opening is the
plane
problem,
load, when they
because
came to
for
Florida,
all of
and one
us
the mothers
who
pointed
went
to a
through
6-year-old daughter,
Iraq and
she
Afghanistan,
said, my daughter had been saying
it
the
could
last
feel
2
like,
nights,
hey,
Mommy, I don't
we
wanna
want to
hear
break
any
this
more
open
bombs,
to a
no more
huge wide
rockets.
war
I
instead of
just wanna
targeting
get back to
Hamas.
Florida. So there's a difference between words and deeds. We acted and we saved lives.
Thank you. Ambassador Haley, what would you do? What would you be urging Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to do? Would you consider humanitarian pause, for example?
The first thing I said to him when it happened was I said, finish them. Finish them. And the reason is I worked on this
like you, Nikki.
every day when I was
right.
at the United Nations. And
Oh,
we
I'm
have
sure
to
you did.
remember that they have to, 1, eliminate Hamas, 2, support Israel with whatever they need whenever they need it, and 3, make sure we bring our hostages home. We need to be very clear-eyed to know there would be no Hamas without Iran. There would be no Hezbollah without Iran. There would not be the Houthis without Iran. And there wouldn't be the Iranian militias in Syria and Iraq that are trying to hit our military men and women if it hadn't been for Iran. And who is funding Iran right now? China is buying oil from Iran. Russia is getting drones and missiles from Iran. Iran, and there is an unholy alliance. We need to be clear-eyed. The last thing we need to do is to tell Israel what to do. The only thing we should be doing is supporting them and eliminating Hamas. It is not that Israel needs America. America needs Israel. They are the tip of the spear when it comes to this Islamic terrorism, and we need to make sure that we have their backs in that process.
What does that mean?
Thank you. Mr.
The tip of the spear in regards to this Islamic terrorism, like it's causing it?
I think she means the tip of the spear in the war against Iran, personally.
I think she means like they're going to be the first bodies we sacrifice.
I would go one step further. The founding vision of Israel was based on the idea that they don't want to depend on anybody else's sympathy or direction in defending themselves. So what I would tell Bibi is that Israel has the right and the responsibility to defend itself. I would tell him to smoke those terrorists on his southern border, and then I'll tell him as President of the United States, I'll be smoking the terrorists on our southern border. That's his responsibility. This is our responsibility. That's how we move forward. But I want to be careful to avoid making the mistakes from the neocon establishment of the past. Corrupt politicians in both parties spent trillions, killed millions, made billions for themselves in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, fighting wars that sent thousands of our sons and daughters, people my age, to die in wars that did not advance anyone's interests, adding $7 trillion to our national debt. And Joe Biden sold off our foreign policy. Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, got a $5 million bribe from Ukraine. That's why we're sending $200 billion back to that same country. The fact of the matter is the Republican Party is not that much better. You have the likes of Nikki Haley, who stepped down from her time at the UN. Bankrupt or in debt was her family. Then she becomes a military contractor. She joins the board of Boeing and otherwise, and is now a multimillionaire. So I think that that's wrong when Republicans do it or Democrats do it. That's the choice we face. Do you want a leader from a different generation who's going to put this country first? Or do you want Dick Cheney in 3-inch heels?
Oh, no.
Thank you.
Oh, no.
Senator,
Oh, no.
You're the president. You're on the phone in the Oval Office with the prime minister.
Wow. He's been working on these zingers for a while.
We need the Joe Rogan meme from the UFC fight, too.
You have the responsibility and the right to wipe Hamas off of the map. We will support you. We will be there with you. We'll stand shoulder to shoulder. There will be no daylight. But I would change the station a little bit, though, and head back home to America. I would say to President Biden, diplomacy only is a weak strategy. Appeasement leads to war. From President Obama to President Biden, Obama sent millions to Iran. Frankly, President Biden has sent billions to Iran. That is why I've said that there's blood dripping from the hands of President Obama and President Biden. I would tell President Biden with great clarity, if you want to stop the 40+ attacks on military personnel in the Middle East, you have to strike in Iran.
No.
If you want to make a difference, you cannot just continue to have strikes in Syria on warehouses. You actually have to cut off the head of the snake, and the head of the snake is Iran and not simply their proxies. In order for us to have a powerful response
every time someone mentions
from America,
we're not sending our young men to die in
position
Iran.
Of strength.
Right. No, Iran is not
my
Iraq.
foreign policy is simple.
It is not
you
the
cannot
same
negotiate
kind of thing.
with evil.
It is a
you have
technologically
to
advanced army.
All right, Senator Scott, thank you. Governor Christie, I want to get you to weigh in here.
Look, Lester, these problems are so big and serious that the first thing I would say...
Why does he keep making size references? I'm trying to be responsible here.
No matter what it is you need at any time to preserve the state of Israel. Remember that Hamas's main goal is to get rid of Israel, is to get Israel absolutely off the map. Now, there are three things I think I would say to him when he asked for advice. The first I would say is that it is absolutely your obligation.
All right, real quick, I got to read the super chat from Daniel Trinka. He says, I'm confused. Dick Cheney in 3-inch heels. Is he talking about Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis?
Both.
It creates greater unrest in the entire region. Second, you must go in and make sure that Hamas can never do this again. The fact is that Israel and their intelligence community failed. They failed here, and they failed the people of the state of Israel. And so we need to work closely and better together to make sure one, that they're degraded, and two, that we know everything that's going on inside the Gaza Strip when it's going on, so that something like this can't happen to kill 1,400 individuals again. And the third thing is to keep your eye on the ball. Make sure that we continue to isolate Iran, work with the reasonable nations in the Middle East, the other Arab nations who want to partner with you, and make sure that we continue to isolate Iran so that their only friends in the world are the part of the evil foursome: China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea.
Governor Christie, thank you very much. And we're going to continue in this vein right now with a question from Matthew Brooks, the CEO of the Republican Jewish Coalition, a partner of the Republican National Committee in this debate. Here it is.
Given attacks by Iranian-backed proxy groups on U.S. military bases in Syria and Iraq, attacks that have wounded approximately 24 of our U.S. servicemen, do you support the use of military force by the United States against Iran?
No.
Governor Haley, would you please answer that?
Yes, I'd first like to say they're 5-inch heels, and I don't wear them unless you can run in them.
So she's accepting she's Dick Cheney.
We got two of you on stage.
He said, you heard what he said? We got two of you on stage.
I wear heels. They're not for a fashion statement. They're for ammunition. What we need to be doing for
Is Ron wearing them? Look at his
Syria
shoes.
is, first of all, the idea that our men and women could be targeted, and that we've allowed almost 100 hits to happen under Biden's watch is unthinkable. We need to understand this is Iran giving the green light, telling them what to do, and we shouldn't be doing the tit for tat like what Joe Biden has done. We need to go and take out their infrastructure that they are using to make those strikes with, so they can never do it again. Iran responds to strength. You punch them one and you punch them hard, and they will back off. But what we don't need is Biden falling all over himself to get back in the Iran deal, him giving $6 billion to get 5 hostages home, him telling Netanyahu now that he needs a pause or a ceasefire. We don't need him going and sitting there tiptoeing around Iran because he thinks they're going to do something. You don't respond to an enemy and a terrorist with fear. You respond with strength. When you do that, that's when the world pays attention, and that's when Iran stops.
Thank you. Governor DeSantis, if I can continue with you. Just today, the U.S. launched another one of its limited airstrikes against targets in Syria, this time Iranian-linked facility. How far would you go militarily to hold Iran accountable?
Well, first, Matt, thanks for your question, and I appreciate what you've done over the last month. I know it's been very difficult for the community, and appreciate you guys rallying together in difficult times. I actually served in Iraq back in the day, and we had al-Qaeda in Iraq. You had Shia militias that were funded by Iran that were killing hundreds and hundreds of U.S. troops. And as Commander-in-Chief, I am not going to put our troops in harm's way unless you're willing to defend them with everything you have. Biden has them out there. They're sitting ducks. He's doing glancing blows. That's just inviting more attacks from the Iranians. I would say you harm a hair on the head of an American service member, and you are going to have hell to pay. We are not just going to sit there and let our service members be sitting ducks, and that's true whether it's Iran or whether it's any country on the world. We have to be strong, and we have to defend the people who defend us.
All right, thank you, Governor. And now our second and final question from Matthew Brooks of the Republican Jewish Coalition. Please watch.
Jewish students across the country are threatened and under attack.
Yes, they
are.
are.
What do you say to Jewish students on college campuses who feel unsafe given the dramatic rise in anti-Semitism? And what do you say to university presidents and college presidents who have not met the moral clarity moment to forcefully condemn Hamas terrorism?
It was a professor who killed that Jewish elderly man.
Absolutely. I think the scourge of anti-Semitism across this country, including at places like my alma maters and places like Brooklyn Bridge in New York, it's sad to see, but here's what history teaches us. Anti-Semitism is a symptom of a deeper cancer in a country and a society that is lost, and we are lost. Several years ago, when I wrote my first book, Woke Inc., I was talking about they were chanting death to America. Death to white people, death to Christians. Nobody was waking up back then. Now it's even bad. Now they're saying death to Israel and worse. So it is wrong, but we have to get to the root cause here. Now, I think it's really important that we do this through leadership, not censorship. Leadership means fill that void with purpose and meaning. Dilute this wokeism and anti-Semitism to irrelevance. These kids, they have no idea what the heck they're even talking about when they're siding with Hamas over Israel. They are fools. But I also want to caution here, if we go the direction of Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley, with whom I respectfully disagree on this issue, pro-censorship, telling student groups to disband, mark my words, soon they will say if you question a vaccine and its side effects, you're a bioterrorist. Soon they will say that if you show up at a school board meeting, you're a domestic terrorist. Soon if they say that J6 prisoners should be released, you're an insurrectionist terrorist. So that's where this road ends. We don't quash this with censorship because that creates a worse underbelly. We quell it through leadership by calling it out. These university administrators have lost their way, and we need leadership at the top in the United States of America that restores our founding values and that has no place for this kind of anti-Semitic hate. That's where I stand while
He texted me when Ron DeSantis made that move, and I talked to him about it, and he was critical of what Ron did in shutting down these groups, despite the fact they claim to be Hamas. But I said that to Vivek. I was like, hey man, these they're claiming to be Hamas and support Hamas, and then he said effectively what he was saying. He was like, no way, dude. If you let him make this move, it's just a bunch of dumb kids. They're going to go after everybody.
To our country,
I'm impressed.
On a visa to a college campus. Your visa is a privilege, not a right. Number 3. Any campus that allows for anti-Semitism and hate, to allow students to encourage terrorism, mass murder, and genocide, you should lose your federal funding today, period. To all the students
they all should.
On visas,
they all should. Every single one.
They should lose their federal funding anyway.
Every single other school.
Just do it anyway.
Just get rid of it, please.
Dave Rubin is, like all of DeSantis' people are complaining about Vivek.
With our Jewish
Americans. Hasn't really gone after DeSantis hard.
It's the heels comment.
Jewish students.
Are they freaking out?
Dave Rubin called him names, and there's someone else that supports
a Jewish citizen
DeSantis
has
that I know that's
the right to walk on the streets of America with no fear. They have the right to go to college campuses, go to class, and not fear. We will restore that. I started working on anti-Semitism on college campuses in 2017 because even then there was a rise of anti-Semitism on college campuses. We must force the people off those campuses and frankly,
thank you. Let me turn to the Governor DeSantis here. What do you think about what he just said?
buddy.
Yep.
I was the first presidential candidate to say, if you are here on a student visa as a foreign national, you're making common cause with Hamas, I'm canceling your visa and I'm sending you home. No questions asked. Second, I have friends here in Florida who their kids do not feel safe even going to university campus at all outside of the state of Florida. You have Jewish students fleeing for their lives at Cooper Union. Joe Biden should have the Department of Justice on these college campuses and holding the universities accountable for civil rights violations. When you should not have money going to these places. I already acted in Florida. We had a group, Students for Justice of Palestine. They said they are common cause with Hamas. They said, we're not just in solidarity, this is what we are. We deactivated them. We're not going to use state tax dollars to fund jihad. No way. And what is Biden
criminally
doing?
charge them if they're Hamas?
Helping the Jewish students.
Yeah, exactly. I think that should be the line.
Yep.
If you're actually a party to supporting a terrorist group, then charge them.
No, they shut them down and told them to reform.
That is what we have
That's a good point because that speaks to more issues than just like the freedom of speech and stuff. Like when you're talking about like if someone is too dangerous to get on a plane, there shouldn't be no fly list. There should be charges.
Yeah, right.
Do something about it.
Yeah, do something. All this half measure, and maybe they might be dangerous, so we're going to violate their civil rights. No,
but it can all be used to violate our civil rights. That's really what it's about.
Yeah, didn't they make the Proud Boys a terrorist organization
in Canada? But I do agree with having the DOJ investigate civil rights violations because a lot of these far leftists are targeting actual Jews with violence. Not Israelis. They're coming to universities. So that I agree with. But disbanding a group, no. If they go out and threaten people, okay. If he said they were threatening Jewish students on campus, I'd say, okay, he's right.
Yeah.
Charges, not these secret lists, not these red flag laws. If someone's dangerous, charge them. We have a justice system for a reason, and we have amendments that are alleged to or ostensibly supposed to prevent the federal government from doing things like putting people on lists and
I do like pooling the student visas, though. If you're not an American citizen, I don't think you're entitled to the same, sort of us being careful with your rights, okay? If you're not from here and you're showing us even the possibility that you're going to align with terror, like, you're good to go. We're gonna ask you to leave.
I do love he said Tucker, Elon, and Rogan hosting the debate, 10 times the viewership. 10?
Oh, yeah.
Bro, it would be like 300 times the viewership.
Way bigger. Way bigger.
I love that he went after the
and we stopped any hate crimes that were going
so
on
delicious.
either against Jewish
Very
Americans in New
satisfying.
Jersey or Muslim Americans in New Jersey. It takes leadership, Lester, to know how to do this. You must work with both sides. Both sides need to know it, but let us never have a false moral equivalence between Hamas and Hezbollah and the Jewish people. The Jewish people stand for right and justice, and Hamas and Hezbollah stand for death.
Governor Christie, thank you. Ambassador Haley, what do you say to Americans who are simply afraid right now in this current environment that we're talking about?
I think, you look at the country, and the country is all out of sorts. I think, look at what these kids are dealing with on college campuses. What makes me so angry is
she has no idea
not only do you
why.
have the kids
She doesn't know
barricaded
anything
in the
about
library.
what has happened
They
at
said they were going to
colleges-
shoot
in
up
colleges
the
and why
kosher
kids
dining
feel
hall.
ready.
You've got kids' dorm rooms who are being set on fire because they have something related to Israel on their doors. No person should ever feel in danger like this. And this is what I would say about our college presidents, is if the KKK were doing this, every college president would be up in arms. This is no different. You should treat it exactly the same. Anti-Semitism is just as awful as racism, and we've got to make sure they're protected. And for everybody that's protesting on these college campuses in favor of Hamas, let me remind you something. Hamas said death to Israel and death to America. They hate and would kill you too. And the idea that they're talking about genocide for the Jewish people, that's not the values of America. That's not us. We're better than that. We don't need
Leftists
to
hate
celebrate
America
terrorism.
too.
We don't need
Thank
to
you.
celebrate genocide. We don't need to celebrate violence towards anybody. We need to go back and soul search in our country and remember what we are about. And we are about taking care of people, not going and making them live in fear because some other terrorist activity says they want to destroy them.
Ambassador, thank you. Kristen.
Lester, thank you. This is another
I didn't even really understand that. It was just a lot of mumbo jumbo.
She was conflating Jewish with Israel, which is a big problem.
The United States has given Ukraine.
The one part I agreed with was that, these people would want to kill us too, obviously.
Right.
President Zelensky told me on Sunday, if Russia
why
isn't
we're
stopped
armed.
now, quote, the price will be higher for the United States.
Don't care.
And Americans would be forced to, quote, send your sons and daughters to
Never.
defend
Nope.
NATO countries. Senator Scott, where do you stand on more funding for Ukraine?
I certainly have been very supportive of Ukraine. I believe that ultimately we should make sure that the President of the United States states what is America's national vital interest in Ukraine. It is actually in degrading the Russian military. We've been very effective using our resources and our weaponry and the incredibly high price of Ukrainian blood to achieve that objective. Every day we get closer to the degradation of the Russian military, and that's good news. But the American people are frustrated that they do not have a president who reminds us and tells us, where's the accountability? Where are those dollars? How are those dollars being spent? We need those answers for us to continue to see the support for Ukraine. And at the same time, I would say that a package,
you know what? Let's see what Trump's doing.
I oppose the use of young Ukrainian bodies and their blood.
Yeah,
so that we can irritate Russia.
I don't think we can get the Trump rally doesn't want to play.
The Russians are advancing their military through this conflict. They're learning new tactics, figuring out what weapons don't work.
Shutting down free speech, taking bribes and kickbacks to enrich themselves and their very spoiled children.
They're about to go to Ramaswamy.
Oh, he's with the Cubans in Hialeah.
Rigging and cheating.
You said they're going to Vivek?
After this guy, I have a feeling they're going to Vivek.
Cover up their colossal...
All of you were talking about.
We're not getting the connection for Trump. So
you know what our war strategy in America should be? Like, we should have an operating procedure for all elected officials that when we take a vote, which we should vote to go to war or not, when that happens, politicians should have to either themselves agree to go to the front lines or one of their children or grandchildren. If you did that, we'd be a much more peaceful world.
People to understand where the resources have gone. number one. Number two, after we have that responsibility taken care of and accountability, then we have an opportunity to look at the overall strategy that helps us degrade the Russian military while we use our resources.
There's
and
no
frankly,
point to degrade the Russian military. The Russian military is not on par with the United States military.
From the Russian military
not on par with NATO.
Absolutely essential, as you understand. Article 5 would require to support and to defend NATO, our troops on the ground. The fastest way for us to eliminate that possibility is for us to destroy, to the extent possible, the Russian military. By doing so, we actually achieve the objective of keeping our military home. And that's good news.
Thank you, Senator Scott. Mr. Ramaswamy, are you persuaded by President Zelensky's urgent new plea? Where do you stand on more funding?
I'm absolutely unpersuaded. Yes. I'm actually enjoying watching the Ukraine hawks quietly, delicately tiptoe back from their position as this thing has unwound into a disaster.
You forgot to say in their
first half of this race, I was the only person standing for it. Now they're actually quietly coming around to being more cautious, as they should. Level with the American people here. Ukraine is not a paragon of democracy. This is a country that has banned 11 opposition parties.
Yes.
It has consolidated all media into one state TV media arm. That's not democratic. It has threatened not to hold elections this year unless the U.S. forks over more money. That is not democratic. It has celebrated a Nazi in its ranks, the comedian in cargo pants, a man called Zelensky, doing it in their own ranks. That is not democratic. More facts for you that you won't hear from the mainstream in either party or the mainstream media. The regions of Ukraine that are occupied by Russia right now in the Donbass, Luhansk, Donetsk. These are Russian-speaking regions that have not even been part of Ukraine since 2014, that other people probably couldn't name those provinces for you.
The majority do want to be Russian in those regions.
And sort of frame this as some kind of battle between good versus evil, don't buy it. And I'd like the likes of the sharpest of the war hawks on Ukraine, Nikki Haley, to have some accountability and answer. Do you want to use U.S. taxpayer money to fund the banning of Christians? That is actually what's happening. They're using the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. They have banned them. The Ukrainian parliament just did this last week, supported by our dollars. And I think you owe it to the American people, Nikki, to at least this one time.
He's taking her out.
Banning of Christians.
Mr. Ramaswamy, thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy, thank you. We asked the questions. Ambassador Haley, what is your take on more funding
Let's hear the
for
response.
Ukraine?
Let's see.
We asked the questions.
I am telling you, Putin and President Xi are salivating at the thought that someone like that could become president. They would love to see that.
Oh, please.
So this is what I will tell you.
We're driving Russia into China.
It's not the 90s anymore.
You had your time to talk. The ambassador has the floor.
Thank you. The first thing I'll tell you is we all remember what that thug did when he invaded Ukraine. We all know that 500,000 people have died because of Putin. And here is a freedom-loving, pro-American country that is fighting for its survival and its democracy. No, I don't think we should give them cash. I think we should give them the equipment and the ammunition to win. And I'll tell you, if Biden had done it when they first asked for it, this war would be over.
But
let's also remember this.
A massive cap. That is
when
such
you left
bullshit.
Afghanistan in shambles and left them with a ton of weapons and money, it's not that we left, it's how we left. When you look at Ukraine,
I agree with that.
Don't think for a second, now everybody wants to move away from Ukraine. They'll want to move away from Israel a year from now. America
we wanted to move away. No, we wanted to move away from Ukraine right away, immediately. We wanted to not ever move in.
Now is the time to get partnerships.
But I'm okay with cutting funding to other countries.
This unholy alliance between Russia, Ukraine, and China is real. There is a reason the Taiwanese want us to support the Ukrainians. It's because they know that China is coming after them next. There is a reason Ukrainians want us to support Israelis, because they know that if Iran wins, Russia wins.
Ambassador.
We have to see the combination of the three.
Ambassador,
we can't keep
Wow.
funding wars all over the world. That's her argument.
How long
Is it,
should
hey,
we
this
do
other
this?
country is going to want our money and this other one, and if we don't give our money to this one, then the next one's going to be worried they won't get our money. It's like none of them should be getting our money.
It's boilerplate
just a
neocon.
couple of
years.
100%. Neocon.
And she was like, I don't want to give them money. I want to give them arms and equipment. Like, how are you going to pay for that stuff?
This
Our
is
money.
This is the price we pay for being the
Chris
leaders
Christie
of
is
the free
trying to
world.
do this like solemn, somber.
Yeah, he uses
persona.
Lester's name over and over again.
He did the Donald Duck, and that flopped. So now he's trying to do the I must be serious.
The
Mike Pence.
Shut up,
crap.
dude.
And they are all working to support Russia right now.
My advice to Chris
And the
Christie is
reason
to
they're
cut the
doing it is
carbs.
because dictators work together. People who believe in democracy work
Got
together.
1 gram of one
We
carbohydrate in
must
this
stand with all
spindrift
of
here.
those that are standing up for democracy and freedom in this world. And by the way, let's remind everybody of this. In 1992, this country made a promise to Ukraine. We said if you return nuclear missiles that were part of the old Soviet Union to Russia and they invade you, we will protect you.
He is correct.
An American promise that's 31 years old is no different than an American promise that's made tonight on this stage. We need to stand by it. And those of us who forget history are doomed to repeat it. And
that's right. I'm trying to remember the history of Iraq and Afghanistan.
The absolute giving in to dictators, which is being suggested on this stage, just shows the immaturity of the approach.
Peace is not giving in to dictators.
I love how they think peace and wanting peace is immature. And they're like, why don't you want to bomb more people and kill more 18-year-olds? That's mature.
Any suggestion by Zelensky or anyone else that we're going to eventually have U.S. troops there, I can tell the American people when I'm president that will not happen. We are not going to send your sons and daughters to Ukraine. I am going to send troops to our southern border. If you look at the threats that we face, terrorists have come in through our southern border. I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to have the military, and I'm going to deport the people who've come, particularly under Biden, who've come from the Middle East, come from all these places. Now, Biden wants $105 billion. 60, most of that's Ukraine, including some of it going to pay pensions for bureaucrats and salaries. That is a totally ridiculous use of American tax dollars. He says he has money for border to try to do, and the media repeat that. When you look at it, what most of the money is money to process more illegal aliens into this country. How is that solving the problem? That's making the problem worse. And what does he do for the Indo-Pacific? A pittance. That is the top threat that we face. We need to bring this war to an end. We need the Europeans to step up and do their fair share. And we need to get serious about the top threat that this country faces, which is the Chinese Communist Party.
So if I may respond to the Ukraine question.
In fact, we are going to go from the hot wars in
Is Vivek the only war skeptic?
Apparently, yeah. I mean, Ron is doing a dance. You know, he's dancing between, and I hate that more than anything.
Many
You've got to dig your feet in and pick a side,
right?
General Secretary Xi is an existential threat to the United States. The flashpoint is Taiwan. For decades and decades, the American military, but primarily the United States Navy, has deterred an attack from China to the island state of Taiwan. But Ronald Reagan's Navy of 600 ships is gone. Now, the question to you is, and I'll start with you, Ambassador Haley, because you were in President Trump's cabinet. His goal was a 355-ship Navy. That's what he pushed for. He got to 300. It's now at 291.
Wow.
Is that big enough to deter and, if necessary, defeat an invasion of Taiwan?
China has the largest naval fleet in the world. They have 350 ships. They'll have 400 ships in 2 years. We won't even have 350 ships in 2 decades. China has built up their military. It's not just land, air, and sea. They're doing cyber. They're doing artificial intelligence. They're doing space.
She is right.
America needs to modernize our military. We need to do everything we can. The first thing is you go and you make sure you have the backs of Ukraine. That's why the Taiwanese want us to support Ukraine, because they know that sends the biggest message to China. The second thing is we go to China and we start being tough on them. No more sales of our American soil to China, and let's take back what they've already stolen. Then you go and to the universities. No more having millions of dollars go to our universities. Then we will go and end all formal trade relations with China until they stop murdering Americans from fentanyl, something Ron has yet to say that he's going to do. And then we modernize our military. When we strengthen our military, when we modernize it with the focus of cyber, artificial intelligence, and space, when we make sure that we have the backs of our friends, whether it's in Israel, whether it's in Ukraine, and we should be arming Taiwan. Make sure they have the equipment they need. Make sure they have the training they need now. There's nothing China fears more than knowing that America will have Taiwan's back. Let's make sure that we show it by making sure they have the equipment they need.
I will say ships are much more vulnerable now than they ever have been.
Hypersonic missiles.
And I'm much more concerned with us advancing in space. Like, let's dominate space because ships are really going to be more and more vulnerable over time with drones and everything else.
President Xi's ambitions. And if China is able to be the world's leading superpower, that will affect you and your family in ways that are going to be very bad. They will export authoritarianism all around the world as the cost of doing business. They will impose things like social credit scores and internet monitoring. So this is,
literally,
to this generation, what the Soviet Union Union was to the
US
post-World
is
War
doing
II
this.
generation.
We
I've
got
already
the
released a
EIP
plan.
thing.
We're going to get to 355 ships at the end of the first term, 385 ships at the end of the second term, but we're going to have a path to 600 ships over the next 20 years. I think the future of freedom is going to be determined in the Indo-Pacific. We have a strategy not just military, but decoupling from the economy and fighting them here at home with their cultural. Ambassador Haley said somehow I wasn't doing. She welcomed them into South Carolina, gave them land near a military base, wrote the Chinese ambassador a love letter saying what a great friend they were. That was like their number one way to do economic development. In Florida, I banned China from buying land in this state.
Also true.
And we kicked out on our universities, and we kicked the Confucius Institutes out of our universities. We've recognized the threat, and we've acted swiftly.
He did do a great job on Florida.
He needs to fire his campaign staff.
Yes. That's the biggest problem.
I know.
He was has been a fantastic governor. His campaign has been just a disaster. Had he done what Vivek has done, which is don't offend Trump voters, don't offend Trump supporters, embrace them.
And attack the corruption.
Go on Rogan and Elon
He
Musk.
would be in such a different place right now. Totally different
If
conversation.
they put Will Chamberlain in charge of his PR and got rid of the existing ones, he could have been on the show way higher.
Will would have killed it. I mean, he'd be doing such a great job running that campaign.
In the midst of trying to back our strongest ally. In Eastern Europe, we've seen our resources and our weaponry help degrade the Russian military. The Indo-Pacific, we have real challenges. The long-term threat is China. Immediate threat is our southern border. In order for us to have the military to fight three different continents at the exact same time, we are going to have to invest heavily in our military, but we're also going to have to invest heavily in an industrial base so that we can hit our objectives from a military perspective, not only with our ships, but also with our planes. We are so old as a military that in order for us to recalibrate, we're going to have to invest. One of the things I do in my Made in America strategy is we create more than 4 million new jobs by having high-tech manufacturing come back to America, decoupling from China, so that we focus our attention on creating that industrial revolution that will be necessary.
Maybe y'all should have not fired unvaccinated soldiers.
Tim Scott should not be on stage right now.
No. Keep him as a senator, if they want him there in South Carolina. Seems like a nice guy, but he's so out of his depth for president.
How big would the fleet get?
First answer is end the toxic divest to invest program. For people who don't know about that, we're decommissioning ships in the South China Sea. The foundation of war is economics. Rebuild our defense industrial base at home. But here's the dirty little secret. Our actual defense industrial base depends on China for the supply chain, for the F-35 jets, for the ships that we're building. Think about this. Why are we stockpiling that if it isn't to actually be strong against our enemy, China? We depend on them for that. Just like we depend on them for pharmaceuticals, just like we depend on them for semiconductors. So here's why we can't get tough with China. It's because we depend on them for our modern way of life, and we have to declare economic independence from our enemy. That's the Declaration of Independence that Thomas Jefferson, at the age of 33, would have signed. Today, if he were alive, that's the Declaration of Independence that I will sign as the next president.
He's done
I do have to recognize
job.
that Ron DeSantis was correct about acknowledging Nikki Haley's tough talk when she was ambassador to the UN, calling China our great friend, bringing the CCP to South Carolina.
Yes.
What he left out, though, Ron, and be honest about it, there was a lobbying-based exemption in that bill that allowed Chinese nationals to buy land within a 20-mile radius of a military base lobbied for by one of your donors. So I think we have to call a spade a spade. We need politicians who are independent of the forces that increase our dependence on China. My message to Xi Jinping is this. You are done buying land in this country. You will not donate to universities in this country. U.S. businesses won't expand into the Chinese market until you play by the same set of rules.
Ramaswamy,
You're kicked out
that
of the
almost sounds
WTO,
like rules for a
and you
few
exit
luxury
the
countries.
Accountability for the COVID-19 pandemic financially. Which unleashed hell on the world. We have to hold them accountable.
You have a number.
That almost sounds like policy for loving your country.
We need to increase our naval capacity by at least 20% over the course of the next several years. And be able to meet our AUKUS agreement standards. Right now, we are at risk of not even being able to meet our AUKUS standards with Australia and the UK. So what we need to do is have a plan that reverses the trajectory of the divest to invest program
I'd like to
by 20% over the next 3 years.
Governor Christie?
My first observation, Hugh, is that nobody answers your
Hugh,
Oh,
how do we get personal
My
with
second
you,
observation
Hugh?
is these three in the middle think they're the enemy. I know China is the enemy, and that's what we should be focused on. So let's be really clear. The nuclear submarines in this United States Navy is the greatest deterrent to Chinese aggression, and that is the first place I would go to increase American naval power. Our nuclear submarines are able to move stealthily, quietly, and effectively, and if we are going to deter China from invading Taiwan, the only way we're going to do it is to make sure that they don't know whether how many nuclear submarines from the United States of America are in the South China Sea and in that area and ready to strike on them if they decide to move on Taiwan. And so we, as our first priority, need to go directly to our nuclear sub-program, Hugh, and we need to increase it drastically. That would be priority number one. Ships would come next, but to me, the ships are secondary choice here. The submarines are the single most important thing that we could be deterring, that we could be using to deter China.
This is like
But the other thing we could do to deter China is to let them know that the blood money they're spending for Russia in Ukraine right now will not be effective. That we send Putin home with his tail between his legs and make them understand that the same fate waits for them if they decide to move towards Taiwan with a more aggressive nuclear sub-program. We'll be able to make that threat real.
Thank you, Governor. We're going to take a brief pause now, and we'll be back to the Republican
I don't know that
presidential
we need more subs to have a legitimate threat, nuclear threat. We already have subs. I don't think that it's a terrible idea to have more nuclear subs.
The Trump rally just won't play.
And keep in mind, the Chinese have nuclear subs on our west coast.
I don't know if that's actually true.
I would be shocked if they didn't.
Are there more people watching the Trump rally?
No, 7,700, and GOP debate's about 70K. But I can't. It's probably because it won't play.
The stream won't play.
So wild.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that is
think
what it is.
we can start recycling 95% of our spent nuclear fuel through closed system recycling systems and just have so much more. I mean, nuclear powered submarines is definitely the way with nuclear warheads ready to
Nuclear power in general is such a massive opportunity for America.
They haven't talked about graphene, which we're going to start. If we're going to reindustrialize our Navy, it's going to be with lightweight graphene materials and hydrogen fuel and nuclear power. These are the things that none of them got specific. I know they're limited with time, and that's why the president usually has science advisors to advise them on those things. But we
Are you gunning for that job, Ian?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gunning. I like that,
You're
that
gunning
metaphor.
for it.
Yeah. I'm going to help the U.S. Navy become the greatest on Earth. I want ships that can go from underwater into outer space and back again.
Oh, I'm with you on that. I told you my concern is space. You know, as long as we're able to get up there, I'm happy.
Man, super lightweight submarines that can go up into orbit.
Energy
cool to me.
tech. We need better propulsion technology, better energy conversion technology, things like that.
Yes.
Yeah, like what, plutonium?
No, I don't know about
I defer to the nuclear scientists.
That stuff's very heavy.
Remember, nuclear subs are just it's just used to heat water. It's just a steam engine. So the tech for nuclear sub to make the rotor spin is going to be significantly different to what would be necessary to actually have propulsion that can defeat.
It's easy because they're floating.
Like piezoelectric power, where you actually can vibrate substrates to create electrical current. That's so you don't actually need steam. Like that's the next step of energy production.
I don't know how that would transfer
fusion
into
reactors,
getting out
man.
to space.
It would be
though.
lighter weight than having fuel on board or something, or like hydrogen fuel.
Well, somebody already knows how to do it. Have you guys seen these videos from the UFO files the government's been like slowly putting out that some of these have gone into the ocean? They visually confirmed, like the pilots have seen them go into the ocean and come out. I mean, somebody's figured it out. I don't know who it is.
It's not hard to make an air and sea vehicle.
Yeah.
So we already have planes that can land on water. You could probably. I don't think it's a great feat of engineering to figure out how to make something that's
to submerge it and then come back out.
You know what I mean?
I think at the speeds they're doing it and everything is really what they've been impressed by.
That's the biggest problem is if you're talking about getting into space, like breaking Earth's gravity is really, really, really hard.
Yeah.
You have to be, it's 20,000 miles an hour is the speed you need to be to get out of Earth's gravity.
They've got those spin launch systems. Have you seen those where they'll get it spinning really fast and you can get materials up really easy?
Yeah.
Slingshot basically spins around and then boom, straight up in the air. That's cool.
Looks so cool.
And then another thing they do is they'll bring a plane as high up as possible and launch from the plane so that it cuts down on a lot of the energy usage. But ultimately the plan is get everything on the moon. You build a moon base. This is what it was. This is the Artemis project, right?
Yeah.
You build a moon base so that you slowly transport energy and materials up there. And then you can launch for further missions.
Yeah, they're working on the space elevator on the moon. Liftport is the company with Michael Lane. He used to work at NASA, and they're aiming at doing it on the moon first because of the low gravity. It's easier to get the elevator up and running. And I think graphene's going to be the material for the tether, or at least it's going to be some sort of graphene alloy or something.
They're coming back to the debate. Here we go.
Who's the biggest loser so far?
Tim Scott.
Yeah. And then Christie.
And welcome back
Well,
to
Christie's the
tonight's
biggest
presidential debate. Once again, here's Hugh Hewitt.
Thank you, Lester. We're going to stay on China, and we're going to talk specifically about TikTok. Last week, Congressman Mike Gallagher, who is chairman of the House Bipartisan Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party, published a long essay on TikTok following the flooding of pro-Hamas propaganda onto TikTok accounts across the United States. Chairman Gallagher called it shocking. He called the app predatory, controlled by America's preeminent adversary, one used to push propaganda and divide America. It's spyware, he said, a means of surveillance. Governor Christie, do you agree with Chairman Gallagher? And if so, would you ban or force the sale of TikTok?
I agree 100% with Chairman Gallagher, and let me say this. TikTok is not only spyware, it is polluting the minds of American young people all throughout this country, and they're doing it intentionally. And when you saw what happened in the last few weeks,
if that's true, this isn't limited to TikTok.
Anti-Semitic, horrible stuff that their algorithms were pushing out at a gargantuan rate.
I believe that's true.
This is China.
Mike Gallagher on the show, the chairman.
So there was data showing that despite there being more pro-Palestine posts, they weren't getting very many views. And then a week later, like on the dot, 10x the views, 100x the views, which is more indicative of an algorithmic boost to those posts.
100%.
And now since then, we've had an additional nearly 6 years of this type of poison being put out throughout the United States, even putting aside the spying, which we know is going on, and the theft of American personal data and information. So in my first week as president, we would ban TikTok. They want to go ahead and sell it? Let them go ahead and sell it. But I'll tell you another reason we would do it.
What mechanism does the president have to ban
in China.
a social media site?
X is not in China.
I think it's because of TikTok's
They're not
ownership
permitting
structure.
a free flow of information
They would be able to
the Chinese people from our
or put
social media
restrictions on it in a certain way.
Make them free their software code to operate in the U.S.
Well, they can't do that.
TikTok
Actually, it might be able to. It's a foreign company.
Poisoning American minds, and I would do it week one.
Thank you, Governor. I want to go to Governor DeSantis. Would you ban or force the sale of TikTok, regardless of whether or not China allowed American apps to operate in China?
Yes, I think that China is the top threat we face. They've been very effective at infiltrating different parts of our society.
Force Mexico to
my
pay for
policy
it.
on China and the Chinese Communist Party is very simple. We win, they lose. And in order to do that, it's not just military, it's economic, and it's cultural. And as the dad of a 6'5" and a 3-year-old, I'm concerned about the data that they're getting from our young people and what they're doing to pollute the minds of our young people. These kids get these devices and they have a mind of their own. And I know a lot of parents are looking, it's hard to even keep it out. China's obviously the most extreme, but this is happening with other things. So we are going to do that, and we're going to make sure to protect the American people. It's a full spectrum approach to be able to fend China off. Yes, military deterrence. Yes, economic.
You don't. And parents need to parent. I have a 14-year-old. She doesn't have TikTok. I mean, it's not hard. And she doesn't want it. She doesn't want TikTok.
Yeah, my kids go, or my nephews go to public school. They're not like, tucked away. My sister's a normie bank manager. She's as normie as you get.
To the fact that two people hit me and you didn't let me respond. So let's first talk about
it's probably because she's a woman, right? It's
from 10 years ago. Yes, I brought a fiberglass company 10 years ago to South Carolina. But Ron, you are the chair of your economic development agency that as of last week said Florida is the ideal place for Chinese businesses. Not only that, you have a company that is manufacturer of Chinese military planes.
Some mango right about now.
You have it. They are expanding 2 training sites at 2 of your airports now, one which is 12 miles away from a naval base. Then you have another company that's expanding, and they were just invaded by the Department of Homeland Security. So mine was 10 years ago.
You gave
Yours
them
was
stuff.
6 months
I didn't
ago.
give them anything.
What's your story?
And I abolished that agency that she's talking about. about.
No,
Enterprise Florida, we abolished it, and of course we banned
He
China from
scrubbed
buying
the
land.
website
Not
last
exactly
week.
a
Go
great
check.
recruiting
I
pitch if
want
you're
to,
banning them from
You
purchasing
scrubbed
land.
the
So
website
we've stood
last
up
week.
and
Thank you,
done the
Ambassador
right thing
Haley.
in Florida.
Mr. Ramaswamy, we've talked about this. You campaign on TikTok. How do you get TikTok banned if you use it?
Well, I want to laugh at why Nikki Haley didn't answer your question, which is about looking at families in the eye. In the last debate, she made fun of me for actually joining TikTok while her own daughter was actually using the app for a long time. So you might want to take care of your family first.
Leave my
adult daughter. The next generation of Americans are using it. And that's actually the point.
Yeah, parent your kid, dude.
Propping her up.
That's what I just said, wasn't it?
You're
The
just
easy
scum.
answer is actually to say that we're just going to
You're
ban
just
one
scum.
app. We got to go further. We have to ban any U.S. company actually transferring U.S. data to the Chinese. Here's a story most people don't know. Airbnb hands over U.S. user data to the CCP. Now, that's a U.S.-owned company. So this is the problem when you have Republicans that temporarily go the way the winds blow, and now it's popular to talk tough on China. When she was UN ambassador, called them literally, her words, not mine, our great friend. You can't be fair weather fans of the right policy. Get to the root cause. Even U.S. companies in Silicon Valley are regularly doing it. Cut the virtue signaling. The fact of the matter is Democrats are on TikTok today. The only person, one of the few people who is putting up content the way the actual algorithms work, speaking for pro-Israel views or others, is
Ambassador
me. And I predict
Haley,
more Republicans will join it. But
Yeah, no,
stop
it's a
US
good
companies
point.
from
If it's
turning
not
over data to
banned,
Chinese companies.
we should have our
Moderators
people
like
on
the
there.
Christensen don't get to respond to personal attacks, but you do.
Thank you very much. You know, when he talks about me praising China, he doesn't know the fact that the reason China was praised was because I negotiated with China and Russia the largest set of sanctions against North Korea in a generation.
So
that is literally the reason North Korea stopped testing ballistic missiles. So I said China did good on their part. That was a
You said
negotiation
they were our
you
great
could
friend
never
is
do.
what you said, Nikki. Those are your words, not mine. So just own up to it.
You would never
you can
have been
change
able
your
to
mind.
get
That's
that
allowed.
negotiation.
That's allowed. To the people of
North
America.
Korea has had no material effect on our lives.
You have brought them to South
Career
Carolina.
at the
Ron is
United
right
Nations.
about that.
Every day I fought China, and I did it
Look at the
by
actual
making sure
hard
no
facts.
one
You
could
brought
get
them to this
any
country.
agency heads in UN. I did it by making sure that we called them out on human rights. I did it by making sure that we held them accountable on everything that they did. That's the reason we got out of the Human Rights Council. That's the reason we called them out. And there's not been a day I haven't
Nikki,
stopped.
Thank you.
It is your turn,
Policy
Mr.
experience with the millions you
Ramaswamy.
made afterwards.
Everybody else is hanging on to the rules here, Mr. Ramaswamy. Senator Scott.
Thank you. We should.
No, let's mute it.
Yeah, I don't think you can.
Already.
I don't think you can ban companies that interact
I love how
with
you
China.
just gone to muting his answers at this point.
If you're constantly banning companies that interact with China, you're going to be chasing the tail. Always be right behind the company that just did it, and the data is going to constantly. So you need to force them to open up the code ahead of time so you can see which ones are sending it and immediately cut it off. I got it.
Also should provide in my parents' Bill of Rights, we give parents the
I like Tim
opportunity
Scott, but he should not be
to
up
give their
there.
kids
Yeah, he
permission
should
under
stay a
14
senator.
to be on those
I think if
apps.
the people in
I
his
think
state are
it's
happy
incredibly
with it,
important
let's
for
stick
us
with that.
I just want to say, you guys know the story of the turtle and the rabbit or whatever?
Yeah.
You know, basically the story goes that the turtle was really, really slow and the rabbit was chilling, taking it easy. And then the turtle tried as hard as it could, but the rabbit just, leisurely scrolled across the finish line, and Tim Scott's a turtle. So there you go. Pretty sure that's how the story went.
No, it's the other way around. The turtle won the race because he never stopped.
I know, I'm kidding.
Buying our farmlands. We talked about that several
There's a
times.
tortoise in
Yeah, he is a
there.
tortoise.
We have to make sure that we use the tools that are in our toolkit to stop China from buying farmland near our bases. The third thing we have to do is make sure that they stop stealing our intellectual property. They're literally
All right, I'm sorry.
stealing.
I got to say something. I've had people tell me, because we watch this stuff, we'll read news stories, and I'll, I'm muting Tim Scott, and then people will be like, hey, but what if you want to get him on the show at some point? I'm like, dude, I've had people ask me about this with prominent people, like, oh, but if you criticize them, what if they don't come on your show? I'm like, I guess they don't come on my show. I guess we don't get the biggest show in the world. I'm not gonna play this game, and some of the bigger shows are willing to do it. less partisan ones, they'll absolutely be like, I don't want to be too mean to somebody because they're hoping they can book them later.
I know what you mean, because it could help everybody if we get Tim Scott in the room and are able to like talk some sense into him.
Rivals.
If he doesn't want to
the
come on the show,
problem
it's
is,
fine. I
though,
like
you're
him.
just going to get very boilerplate political answers.
Exactly.
They're never willing to go past, and I think that is the future of America. If we're going to save this country, it's going to be that we have a whole lot more truth tellers who are willing to have hard conversations, who are willing to act like normal people and not go act like robots. Who finds this attractive in our generation? Nobody. These people are living off the politics of the 90s, and it's not how our generation
Vivek's
operates.
thinking about the future.
Yes.
That's why he's doing this. Okay.
We're going to create jobs. We're going to lower energy costs, but we're also going to be more energy independent and secure. We'll choose Midland over Moscow. We'll choose the Marcellus over the Mullahs, and we'll choose Bakken over Beijing. That is good for America's national security. Biden's Green New Deal, that's good for Venezuela, it's good for Russia, it's good for Iran, and it's good for China. So I would turn the screws on the Venezuelan regime. I think it's a corrupt, dictatorial regime, and we should never go hat in hand begging for oil from them.
Just to be clear, would you reimpose the sanctions?
Yes, absolutely.
Ambassador Haley, what would your approach be?
You know, I stood on the Simon Bolivar Bridge and watched thousands of Venezuelans cross for hours in the hot sun holding their babies to get the one meal they might get that day going from Venezuela to Colombia. They were fleeing socialism and begging for freedom. We need to make sure that we do everything we can to sanction Maduro. We shouldn't be getting dirty oil, and Biden just gave 500,000 Venezuelans temporary priority status, which is just going to have more of them come. But on the energy side, it cracks me up that Ron continues to do this. He has opposed fracking. He's opposed drilling. Last time he said it wasn't true, and everybody found out that it was true. He opposed it before Florida voters even voted on it. He was praised by the Sierra Club, and you're trying to make up for it and act like you weren't a liberal when it comes to the environment. You were. You always have been. Just own it if that's the case, but don't keep saying you're something that you're not.
Let me respond to that. Our whole energy plan, you can't get the shale without fracking. We are absolutely going to frack, but I disagree with Nikki Haley. I don't think it's a good idea to drill in the Florida Everglades, and I know most Floridians agree with me.
You banned fracking.
Thank you very much. Lester?
All right, thank you. Let's turn to one
she's
of the
conflating the
biggest
nuance
issues for
of
voters,
Florida.
and of course, is the
In
economy.
Florida, it's
This is
very
a
clear
question that
nobody
will go to
wants the
all of you.
Everglades drilled.
An Iowa voter
That's been a
recently
long
told
time
NBC
thing.
News,
Both
"How am I
parties,
gonna make
everybody's
sure my
universally
pantry's stocked
agreed on
without
that.
breaking the bank?" You've all said the best way to deal with rising prices is to cut government spending. But that would take time to play out, and Americans are struggling right now. Senator Scott, I'll start with you. What would you do the moment you...
There we go.
Let's go. I'll get a drink.
Yeah,
It'd be good if any of them knew
We'll get him back.
what a real family's struggling
My
with.
mother was a single mother who raised me and my brother in a very challenging economic situation. The first thing I can tell you is that when your gas prices are 40% higher right now than they were just a little over 2 years ago, that's not a problem for my mama. That was a crisis. The first thing I would do as President of the United States is I would sign the XL Keystone Pipeline and start seeing resources flow. Second thing I would do is make sure that there's certainty and predictability so that those folks who have the leases in our country would have the certainty and predictability to go ahead and become energy independent. We should focus not just on being energy independent, we should focus on being energy dominant. America is the home to more energy resources than any other country on the planet.
Russia has the most uranium.
We can reduce the price of energy, we can reduce the price of food and the price of electricity if we focus on my build here, don't borrow from China plan that is embedded the Made in America strategy. Creates 10 million new jobs in 3 different areas. One is innovation. Second is the high-tech manufacturing. And the third is the energy economy. We have an opportunity as Americans to actually export the surplus energy that we create.
New rule. Any debate requires a random tradesman from a random part of the country who's got to be between the ages of like 30 and 50 to be on that stage at the same time as all the politicians who's not running.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
I should clarify, the most uranium comes out of Canada, Australia, and Kazakhstan. Russia has the largest enrichment program, and the U.S. gets a lot from them.
Some, like, let's just say you got like a 40-year-old, like, I don't know, plumber on that stage. they'd be like, the thing about Vladimir Putin and the Baltic states, he'd be like, what the you talking about? I'm trying to get gas for my kids to go to school. What is this?
Yeah.
Yep.
100%.
When you allow for those who have leases to actually start drilling, to start using those leases for more energy excavation, you put our economy in the strongest position. And as a result of that, prices start going down. That is the kind of economy that, as president of the United States, I would lead this nation to making sure that we first use the resources in our own country and not going outside of our country.
This is all no-brainer stuff. I don't understand, like, who's innovating something? Who's going to do something really impressive?
Yeah, Rice University.
I gotta say, when I tweeted
James Tour,
I tweeted "Holy F Dick Cheney and 3 Inch Hills," Vivek roasts Nikki Haley. Everyone's like, he was talking about Ron. Like Luke tweeted, "You sure that wasn't about Ron?" Everyone's saying the same thing.
Senator, thank you. Let me ask the same question to Governor DeSantis. Can you give us some, you ticked off a number of things a moment ago, but some specific examples of ways that would put people on a better economic footing right away?
So I started off working minimum wage jobs. I did $6 an hour as an electrician's assistant. I worked all kinds of things to be able to get through school. And I did that because I believed in America, if you work hard and get the most out of your God-given ability, you can get ahead. And what's happening now, many of you are working hard and you're falling further and further behind. I've met people in Iowa, New Hampshire, and all across the country who've talked about all the burdens that they're facing with the rising prices. And I've heard from multiple people the same story. When they go grocery shopping, what they now do is they figure out what they have to take out of the cart once it's ringing up, because it rings up so much faster and so much higher at the cash register that they can't afford the full cart of groceries anymore. We have to restore the American dream in this country. What can you do on day one? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take all the executive orders, the regulations, everything involving Bidenomics. I'm going to rip it up and I'm going to throw it in the trash can on day one where it belongs. That is going to give the economy breathing room. And I'm also going to rein in the Federal Reserve. They have helped create, with their reckless monetary policy, what we have faced since the COVID-19 pandemic. They botched it. Congress botched it. Both parties are to blame. Fed should focus on stable prices. They are not an economic central planner for the American people.
Governor, thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy, weigh in on this. Ways that you can improve people's financial condition in the short term.
Right, and as a CEO, the economic question is core to my vision and policy prescription for this country. Increase the supply of everything. It's the law of supplies and demand. Increase the supply of energy. That brings down the cost of energy, grows the economy. Drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear. Increase the supply of labor in this country. Stop using our taxpayer money to pay people more to stay at home instead of to go to work. Increase the supply of housing. People don't talk about this one in the Republican Party. The land use restrictions are constricting the supply of housing. That's making housing more expensive for ordinary Americans across the country.
Young people can't afford them.
So that's the true answer. And I think it takes a CEO in the White House who actually understands this to get this done. Because Americans at home, they know the Bidenomics is a lie. Prices are going up. Interest rates and mortgages to buy your home are going up. But wages have remained flat. That's the hard diagnosis for our economy. And this is about more than just our economy. I say this as a member of my generation. I'm 38 years old. I'm the youngest person ever to run for U.S. president as a Republican. The reason my generation has lost our sense of national pride, in part, is because people in my generation feel like the American dream isn't available to them. And part of the reason why is we burdened them with four-year college degrees that did not serve their head start on the American dream. People will be more proud of a country if we're all making more money in that country. This is how we revive national pride and our identity, and it will take a CEO in the White House with zero-based budgeting, by the way, to take on the federal debt to get this job done.
Let me turn to Governor Christie on that.
I tweeted at Luke, hey, Luke, can you see Ron's shoes? He said, not yet, but we'll send a picture soon.
I was going to ask him to scream out graphene.
Absolutely, energy is the key to this because it drives every one of those other prices. You know, now food gets to your grocery store, it gets trucked. And those truckers have to pay for fuel, for the higher fuel prices. And when you go ahead and you tell people, we are going to unleash every bit of American energy, every bit of its potential, what happens in the futures markets? The prices go down because those people who are believing that the Biden program will continue are the ones who are bidding this up. And let me tell you the other place that's bidding it up, in the Middle East. And so if you don't believe that making sure that Israel and that Israel situation that's going on right now isn't resolved and resolved quickly as President of the United States and bring stability back, that will also not permit countries like Saudi Arabia and others to be able to jack their prices as well.
The more
what they
energy
say is
we
in
produce
response
here
to
in the
a crisis,
US,
when it's really
the
what it's in
less
response to
impact
is putting
places
more
like
money in their
Iran
pockets.
have when
they
they
have an
get all
American
crazy.
president who knows that Israel must be defended not with humanitarian pauses and not with suggestions for ceasefire, but with letting them know we will supply them with everything they need. That will also bring stability to the market. Energy is the key to bringing this down. It's what every American family needs when they turn on their lights, fill up their car, and go to the grocery store. And we need to do that first and foremost. That's the short-term answer.
They keep talking about energy like this. They're going to elect Ian president.
Yeah, I did a killer video with Yechezkel Moskowitz yesterday. He wants to reuse spent fuel and thorium salt on my YouTube channel for an hour.
I like what Chris Christie was saying about grocery stores because I appreciate when a man talks about what they're really an expert in. And that man, he is an expert at grocery bills.
Well, I'm a product of rural America. I grew up in rural South Carolina. And I can tell you what we're seeing now in America is the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. We have to go and start beefing up the middle class. And the first thing I would do is I will eliminate the federal gas and diesel tax.
I thought she was going to say Iran.
Middle class, but we have to stop the spending binge that's happening by Republicans and Democrats in Congress. I will make sure, one, we claw back the $500 billion of unspent COVID dollars that are out there. Instead of 87,000 IRS agents going after middle America, we'll go after the hundreds of billions of dollars of COVID fraud that exists, one out of every $7. We'll stop the spending, we'll stop the borrowing, we'll eliminate the earmarks, and I'll veto any spending bill that doesn't go back to pre-COVID levels. That will cut trillions and allow us to be safe. We also need to be not energy independent, energy dominant. We are blessed with resources. Let's do it. But the reason no one should give you a number, Hugh, on the amount of ships in the Navy is because in a few years, our interest expense is going to be more than our defense budget. So no one can give you that number realistically without first tackling what's happening with the financial situation. It would be a false number to give you that. We have got to understand this is a crisis. It is a national security concern. If we don't deal with what's going to happen with that interest expense in a few years, we're going to look like Japan. And we can't let that happen. The strong dollar matters.
Ambassador, thank you very much. Kristen.
Americans could see their Social Security benefits drastically cut in the next decade because the program is running out of money. Former President Trump has said, quote, under no circumstances should Republicans cut entitlements. Governor Christie, first to you. You have proposed raising the retirement age for younger Americans. Oof. What would that age be specifically, and would you consider making any other reforms to Social Security?
Sure, and we have to deal with this problem. Now, look, if we raise the retirement age a few years for folks that are in their 30s and 40s, I have a son who's in the audience tonight who's 30 years old. If he can't adjust to a few-year increase in Social Security retirement age over the next 40 years, I got bigger problems with him than his Social Security payments.
Are there any millennials that have a retirement plan? I mean, obviously,
almost none. Right. Almost none. And the fact that these people can sit up there on stage and say we need to spend our money in Ukraine to kill young Ukrainian men and women at the same time as they tell us we need to wait longer to retire than they did or their parents did. No, I'm good. I'm finished with these people's foreign policy. It's what got us here. Their policies got us here.
Yeah. Shame on you. You shouldn't be taking the money. There are a lot of programs in this country that we all pay for that we don't get a direct benefit from. Food stamps is one of them. I've never, fortunately in my life, ever had me or my family on food stamps. I've gotten EBT. But I'm glad it's there.
In 2 different states.
So that no one in this country goes to bed hungry at night if they have availability to that program. But I don't get a direct benefit. The fact is, on Social Security, remember why it was established. It was established as a safety net program to make sure that no one would grow old in this country in poverty. That's what we got to get back to. Rich people should not be collecting Social Security.
Governor, can you give me a specific age? 69, 70? What would the age be?
No, look, that's going to be a part of a negotiation with Congress, Kirsten.
204.
And hell, I'm not going to start negotiating until I get there.
All right, Ambassador Haley, let me have you weigh in on this because you said in June that you would be open to raising the retirement age. Have Have you determined what that age would
Lower
be
the age.
specifically, and
30.
what other reforms are you looking at?
So first of all, any candidate that tells you that they're not going to take on entitlements is not being serious. Social Security will go bankrupt in 10 years. Medicare
Maybe
will go
because you
bankrupt
keep
in 8.
spending our money
right
in
now,
Ukraine.
you have Ron and Trump joining Biden and Pelosi saying they're not going to change or do any sort of entitlement reform. What we need to do is keep our promises. Those that have been promised should keep it. But for like my kids in their 20s, you go and you say we're going to change the rules. You change the retirement age.
How
for them.
were we
Instead of
not
cost of
promised
living
this?
increases,
Weren't we all
should go to
promised this
increases
too?
based on inflation. We should limit benefits on the wealthy. Bernie Marcus can tell you he hates getting that check. Limit the benefits on the wealthy, and then expand Medicare Advantage plans. Seniors love that, and let's make sure we do that so that they can have more competition. That's how we'll deal with entitlement reform, and that's how we'll start to pay down this debt.
And can you give me a specific age? Have you determined the age?
Again, you have to work with Chris. What I can tell you is it's going to be those in their 20s just coming into the system, and it should reflect more of life expectancy. It doesn't do that now.
All right, Mr. Ramaswamy, have you determined if you would touch entitlements and Social Security? What, if any, reforms are you looking at?
So this is really important right now. We're working within the last window I believe we will have to actually fix this problem while still leaving Social Security and Medicare benefits for current seniors intact. I'll tell you how. The other candidates assume, like Nikki, that it can't be done. And on her math, she's right about it. But her math assumes $7 trillion of our $33 trillion national debt going to fight wars like in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. Minus that, our national debt would be $26 trillion right now. Then you go to zero-based budgeting, which I've proposed as a CEO. It's how I've run businesses. It's how many CEOs run businesses. Don't use last year's budget as the baseline. Start with zero as the baseline and then ask what's actually necessary. 75% headcount reduction. Yes, that is severe. In the number of federal employees in the
Yes, what do these people do? They do nothing.
Agencies that should not exist. Deliver economic growth as a positive tailwind. I think we can get to 3, 4, maybe even 5% GDP growth if we really take the regulatory shackles off of our economy. And against that backdrop, I believe this is our last best window to be able to take care of our national debt problem through those severe measures, including sacrificing the foreign wars that many bloodthirsty members of both parties have a hunger for. That's the one secret for how we're going to be able to do this, and that requires discipline. So we can't have the first conversation we were having, sending foreign aid willy-nilly to countries whose national debt per capita is less than ours.
Thank you,
But if we
Mr.
do this
Ramaswamy.
correctly, I think this is our last window, and it'll take a CEO from the next generation to do it.
Thank you very much.
He's
Senator,
correct.
weigh in here.
He's
What
correct.
are you looking at
You
to
can
keep
fix
Social
this
Security
problem for young
sustainable?
people, but you have to be innovative.
The bottom line is a simple one.
And
we
that's
have
just-
to grow our economy.
We're not
and
doing
cut
that.
our
Yeah, cheap energy, cheap fuel. I actually was pulling this up. We can use our Navy to recover the plastic in the Pacific Gyre. Are you guys familiar with the Pacific garbage patch? This thing the size of Texas.
But you
all
need to
this
understand
floating
it's,
crap.
but it's not dense.
Yeah, Boy and Slat has something called the Ocean Cleanup Project, where they take boats out with large tethers and they let the ocean filter itself into it.
Right.
Then they recollect it that way.
Yeah,
Bring
and
it back
it's
to
not coming
shore.
from the U.S. either.
No.
Yeah, and so we can actually steal it. I mean, you can maybe consider stealing it with our Navy, but we go recover it first. Then we flash jewel it, turn it into graphene and hydrogen fuel, and then we can retrofit our economy.
So
our energy
an interesting thing that's
that way.
happened actually is that a bacteria has emerged that eats plastic.
Yep.
Nature finds a way.
There's a fungus called Pestiolopsis microspore that breaks it down into sugar, and there is also bacteria that breaks it down.
You know, I think we have a problem in our country that we have all these very smart people, very innovative, amazing people, and we use absolutely none of them to do incredible, amazing things. It's all in private business. Our government does nothing. So, like, don't hope for them to go do this and steal this with the Navy and turn it into energy because they're not interested in being innovative in any way.
It's crazy to me how correct Vivek is, yet we have these 4 other people who are just like, well, how about we go blow people up? And it's just like... Vivek's like, we got the zero budgeting from zero. Basic business principle.
Very basic.
Laying people off. I'm sorry, sacrificing our 401. I love that line. No, we just don't do them. You got all these people who are like, why do I have to retire later? Oh, because we sent billions of dollars to Ukraine. Have a nice day.
Exactly. And Afghanistan and Iraq.
Right.
And all these other places. By the way, there's all these other places that we're involved in spending tons of money in that we don't even talk about, like Syria. We've spent a ton of money in Syria. We've spent money in Libya. We spend money in Africa. All over the place.
That line
to get
that-
no discernible anything for the American people.
The line
Nothing.
that Vivek started with early, the spent trillions, killed millions, and made billions for themselves.
Yep.
Like that's a really good line, and it sums it up very nicely in a way that most people can understand.
Because it's true.
Yeah.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate it. Governor DeSantis, finally
like they were
to you.
talking
Would
to you,
you be
Phil.
open
Thank you, Senator.
to raising the retirement age, and how would you keep Social Security sustainable?
Well, look, as governor of Florida, I know a few people on Social Security, and I know it's important. My grandmother lived till 91, and Social Security was her sole source of income, and that's true for a lot of seniors throughout this country. So what I'd say to seniors in America, promise made, promise kept. I understand what you're going through with the rising prices, and you need that Social Security check. So we'll make sure to get that done. What can you do to help shore up Social Security? One of the things that's causing problems is the inflation. We have to reduce inflation. When you have higher inflation, the seniors get a cost of living adjustment, which means the program's spending more, but it doesn't cover the increase in the actual inflation rate. We also do need to get to at least 3% growth. You're never going to be able to have issues, be able to solve the budget without that. But I would note this. Congress for decades took money from Social Security. Social Security would have more tax revenue than it put out. They would take it and then they'd write an IOU to Social Security. Congress has a lot of dirty hands on this. I'm going to force Congress to stop spending so much money. And you know, one thing we have to do when we talk about the retirement age is just something that's changed in the last 4 or 5 years. Life expectancy in the United States is declining.
So, Governor,
in this
yes
country.
or no? Would you raise it? Would you raise the retirement age?
When life expectancy is declining, I don't see how you could raise it the other direction. So it's one thing to peg it on life expectancy, but we have had a significant decline in life expectancy in this country, and that's just a fact.
All right, Governor DeSantis, thank you. Thank you, candidates. And we will be
That was
right.
a more political
Did you hear
answer.
what is this? N Wokeness tweeted an old man shot 2 climate activists who are blocking a highway in Panama.
Yep.
Is that true? I can't find it. I see the picture, but I don't see any sources.
I haven't heard of this.
Yeah, he
Photo's
got
crazy.
into a dispute. He literally walked up to him and he pulled out the gun. And he was like, "Get out of the road!" Essentially.
How good is the
Well, he
End
shot
Wokeness account?
Yeah,
They're pretty good.
it's pretty good. Yeah.
They're really
Pretty
good.
good stuff. Yeah.
And Wokeness.
My friend tweeted.
But I
about
need a
this.
news source on this one.
I don't know. I've seen it shared by multiple people. He was arrested. I've seen. I don't know which website actually or which Twitter account actually has the video of it. But I retweeted about it a little bit.
The shooting. There's video of it.
Not of him. I don't know if there's video of him actually shooting. There's the video.
The photo
there's
of him
video
holding a gun.
Holding a gun and confronting them. There's video of him talking to people, but I don't know if anyone got the video of the actual shots being fired.
Wow. I'm searching for it right now.
I mean, people are really getting fed up with climate activists, especially as more people.
Oh yeah, here's the video.
More people
There's
kind of
video of it?
Not of the shooting.
Oh.
Oh man, whoa. Yeah, this is real.
Yeah.
He pulls the gun out. Wow, this is crazy.
He's in custody. One person died on the scene and one person died later, I believe, at the hospital or on the way to
Look,
the hospital.
man, nonviolent civil disobedience is a good way to create pressure, but the cops got to arrest the people who do it.
Yeah. You can't just allow them.
Yeah, the video's all cut because they have footage of him doing it.
Yeah, someone tweeted that there is video of him actually doing the shooting out there.
That's terrible.
Nah.
You know,
see that-
these
see the
people
video
these
of the-
people are irritating, but you can't kill them. I mean,
no,
that's
like,
crazy.
I respect nonviolent civil disobedience. If they want to go and sit in front of a road, that's the kind of pressure we should expect. Otherwise,
I'd rather that than Antifa.
Well,
exactly, that's my point.
Yeah.
The police should come and arrest them and remove them and restore the flow of traffic and
restore
everything.
order.
But people need an opportunity to put pressure on the system without resorting to violence.
What about
Without being
citizen
Antifa.
arrest?
Yep.
No, because
No, I agree with that too. I do. I absolutely.
But that's just a situation where you're going to end up with confrontations and violence anyway. So
I would say it should be limited because there are limited scenarios where I think that could make sense. Doing citizens arrests where, you know, somebody's like, I'll put it this way. If I had
There's
a family
video
member
of it,
whose
dude.
life was in danger and they needed to get to the hospital and there's climate, all citizens arrest them. I'll do whatever's necessary to get my family member to the hospital.
Yo, there's straight video of it.
Dude,
Terrible.
in Panama? It happened in Panama?
And the dude is just standing there. He's not attacking him or anything. The guy just shoots him.
That's terrible.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no excuse for, like, I do think you're absolutely right, Tim. This is probably the form of protest we should have to, you know, say, we're okay with this because the alternative is this really crazy stuff. You've got to have some outlet for it.
You get arrested for it.
Yeah.
You see the video of the shoplifter getting tackled? And then he's like, "You can't touch me." And the guy's like,
Luke
"You're
tweeted
being
it.
touched."
Yeah. Well, what state was that in?
I don't know, man.
Because if it was California, he's right. You can't touch them. You know?
That was awesome.
No, it's not the law that matters. There's a lot of laws in the books that we don't enforce.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Like women can't go skydiving on Sundays in Florida is the gag one. But if someone's shoplifting like hundreds of dollars worth of merch and someone who works there stops them and they go, "You can't touch me," it's like, tell it to a judge.
Yeah.
Get a sue me and then see what the judge says.
Yeah.
But it really is. It's going to be. I don't think it's not illegal to stop someone stealing. It's a civil issue.
Yeah. The craziest thing I remember from California is they had that case where the guy shot the robber, came into his house, and they actually ruled in favor of the robber when they sued the homeowner.
Oh, wow.
Crazy. And they made him pay the robber. Yes.
Welcome back to tonight's NBC News Republican presidential debate. Once again, here's Salem Radio's Hugh Hewitt.
Thank you,
Hugh
Lester.
Hewitt.
When NBC News talks to voters, when I talk to voters every day, they all say that the border is a top issue. It can mean a lot of different things. It can mean 2 million people who crossed illegally last year. It can mean more than 150 arrests of people on the terror watch list. It can mean the burden on states from having migrants move into their states from the southwestern border. But I want to talk about opioids specifically and fentanyl. And I'll start with you, Senator Scott. Tens of thousands of Americans' families have suffered a death to fentanyl. Young people sometimes die taking one pill. What can you do as Commander-in-Chief on the first day to stop fentanyl and the waterfall of it into this country?
Well, number one, we should close our southern border. For $10 billion, we could close our southern border. For an additional $5 billion, we could use the currently available military technology to surveil our southern border to stop fentanyl from crossing our border. I've already led on legislation that would sanction the Mexican cartels. If you remember the path, the precursors come from China. Then they are manufactured in Mexican labs, and then the Mexican cartels bring them across our border. By sanctioning their accounts and eliminating their cash, we starve them of what they need. Number one, closing our southern border makes it nearly impossible to get in. The military-grade technology is a backup, making sure that we not only stop 70,000 deaths in the last 12 months because of fentanyl, it also allows us to deal with
how many it was.
Trafficking travesty that is entering in our country in the same path. If we are going to deal effectively with 100,000 overdose deaths in our country, and the 70,000 that is directly linked to fentanyl, we have to deal with our ports of entry and deal with our southern border.
We get
If we do that effectively, we have started reducing the challenge from the outside, and then we have to deal with the challenge on the inside, which seems to be connected.
How long have we all
to a
been saying
mental
this? I
health
mean, this is like
crisis that is spreading throughout our nation.
5 years.
If you solve the problem, you'll have to still solve the problem somewhere else.
Exactly.
If you vote for me, I'll solve problems.
I mean, it gets frustrating being right so far ahead of the government and these people, and then they say things like it's like some shocking idea. We've all been waiting. The American people have been waiting for a very long time. Nobody's doing anything about it. So I don't believe them.
Is to not become sarcastic. When you're right all the time, don't allow yourself to start to become sarcastic, because I think that works against it.
Right.
Yes.
To make
And
sure that
be
law
humble when it
enforcement at
actually
every tool at its
changes.
disposal
Don't
to do
try
it.
and claim
Secondly, on day
that you were the
one, I
one.
would sign an
Let
executive
it
order that
change.
would send the National Guard to partner with Customs and Border Patrol, both at ports of entry and at the open ports of our border. Customs and Border Patrol agents are overwhelmed. There's 200,000 encounters a month over the last 11 months. We simply do not have the man and woman power at the border to be able to deal with it. And so dealing with both law enforcement, and you're right, we have done this, we can do this, but we got to give them the tools to do it, and technology is one of the biggest tools that we don't have enough of at the ports of entry. Now, we also need to lower demand, Hugh, in this country. And the way to lower demand is to start treating people again. You know, we started to do this before COVID, and we haven't done enough of it. And for every family out there tonight who has lost a loved one to fentanyl or to any other type of opioid overdose, what you know is all you want is a chance for them to win their lives back. When I'm president of the United States, we're going to call this what it is. It is a disease, like heart disease, diabetes, or any other disease like cancer that can be treated, should be treated. We not only have to stop supply, but we have to lower demand and save lives.
Governor DeSantis, you have talked about using United States Special Forces to attack the cartels where they manufacture the chemicals that come from China. How often? How many? What does that look like?
Well, first, I was speaking to a dad who lost a son to fentanyl overdose. Son wasn't a drug addict. He had taken some pill that happened to be laced with fentanyl, and it was a fatal overdose. And when he told me, obviously the pain of losing a child is as bad as it gets, but he said what was salt in the wounds is that these elites in D.C. don't give a damn about what's going on in this country. They don't care that we have tens of thousands of opioid deaths, that the fentanyl's pouring in. They are not taking the type of action we need to. We're declaring it a national emergency on day one. I'm sending U.S. military to the border. I'm going to stop the invasion cold. I am going to deport people who came illegally. And I'm even going to build the border wall and have Mexico pay for it like Donald Trump promised. How are you going to do it? Yeah, Mexico's not going to fork over money. We're going to impose fees on the remittances that foreign workers send to foreign countries. We'll raise billions of dollars. I'll build the wall. But we are going to designate the cartels to be foreign terrorist organizations or something similar to that. And we're going to authorize the use of deadly force. We're going to have maritime operations to interdict precursor chemicals going into Mexico. But I'll tell you this, if someone in the drug cartels is sneaking fentanyl across the border when I'm president, that's going to be the last thing they do. We're going to shoot them stone cold dead.
I just realized we can build the wall out of graphene.
Ambassador Haley, if the United States uses special forces in Mexico without prior notice to the Mexican allies to our south, what would your colleagues at the United Nations think about that?
I don't care what my colleagues at the United Nations think. What I'll tell you is,
the United Nations
first of all,
useless.
You have to go to the source. We have lost more Americans than the Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Iraq wars combined. We lost 75,000 Americans last year. Go to the source. It is the reason why we'll continue to say we will end all normal trade relations with China until they stop murdering Americans. You watch how quick that flow stops. The second thing is we'll send special operations in to take out the cartels. We need to go to where they're distributing it, where the supply centers are, and take them out. We'll put 25,000 more Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their job.
I don't believe
we
you.
will defund sanctuary cities. We will go back to the Remain in Mexico policy so that everybody stays in Mexico and they never get here in the first place. And instead of catch and deport, we'll go to catch and release.
Okay, I'll vote for Trump for all
instead
that.
of catch and release, we'll go to catch and deport.
why would you vote for Haley if you
That is the way we'll deal
want
with
that?
the border. Those
vote
are
for
the
Trump.
things that we have to do going forward. But I do agree with Chris. One of the first things that we have to do is really focus on mental health and addiction centers. It is something that is needed in our country terribly because we don't deal with mental health, and someone who doesn't get care for mental health falls into addiction, and we owe it to them to treat it like the cancer that it is.
Mr. Ramaswamy,
ayahuasca, like really hardcore psychoactives can help with overcoming addiction.
They need to actually study that.
Now we're talking about this issue is, like Ron, I've actually met many parents across this country who have lost their kids to laced pharmaceuticals that have fentanyl in them. The only thing I would ask, Ron, I think you'd be on the same page with me on this. Let's not even call that an overdose. Right. That is not an overdose. That is poisoning. If you put that fentanyl in a Big Mac, we would not call that an overdose. You'd call it what it is. It's closer to bioterrorism. And I say that because as it uniquely relates to this crisis, that does warrant more aggressive means to deal with it. So there's a new presidential election in Mexico in 2024. People may not be aware of that. It's going to be someone other than Obrador, who has been a disaster in Mexico. I think he's even mentioned me obliquely in speeches to say that somebody who would do this shouldn't get anywhere near the White House. Well, AMLO, get out of the way. There's going to be someone else in charge. I hope to build a good relationship with that next president of Mexico. We'll use our own military to seal our own southern border. What we need to do is stop using our military to protect somebody else's border halfway around the world when we're short right here at home. Get serious about protecting this border. And then the other thing that hasn't been discussed is the northern border. I'm the only candidate on the stage, as far as I'm aware, who has actually visited the northern border. There was enough fentanyl that was captured just on the northern border last year to kill 3 million Americans.
I've never heard that
just
before.
Skate to where the
That's
puck
good.
is
Frostback
going,
is my favorite
not
one.
just
Yeah.
where the
Personally.
puck is. Don't just build the wall,
Where the
build
puck
both
is,
walls.
nice.
Build both
Can't just
walls.
complete the wall, use the military to seal the Swiss cheese for the tunnels that they're actually building underneath that wall.
Thank you,
That's
Mr.
what it
Ramos.
means to
Yeah, I
be practical
agree.
and actually get this job done.
Thank you.
We need a wall for the maple curtain up north.
So
Let's
far,
talk now
Vivek hasn't
about
really
last
said
night's
anything that I
election
strongly
Abortion
disagree with.
rights supporters saw victories in Ohio
Abortion,
and
here we go.
Virginia.
Here we go.
Oh, this should be a
following
disaster.
Earlier wins in states like Kansas and Kentucky. Governor DeSantis, first to you, how do you see the path forward for Republicans on this issue?
Well, I stand for a culture of life, and I understand that it's important that everyone gets a shot. I'm reminded of a story about a young mother who was struggling in Jamaica about 45 years ago. She was counseled to not have a baby because she was poor, baby wouldn't have opportunity, and she came close to have an abortion, but she decided to have the baby, born poor in Jamaica. And the reason I know that story is because that baby girl ended up emigrating to the state of Florida, becoming a lawyer and a judge, and I appointed her to the Florida Supreme Court in August of 2022. We're better off when everybody counts. We're better off when we can promote a culture of life. At the same time, I understand that some of these states are doing it a little bit different. Texas is not going to do it the same as New Hampshire. Iowa's not necessarily going to do it the same as Virginia. So you got to work from the bottom up. You got to do a better job on these referenda. I think of all the stuff that's happened to the pro-life cause, they have been caught flat-footed on these referenda, and they have been losing the referenda. A lot of the people who are voting for the referenda are Republicans who would vote for a Republican candidate. So you got to understand how to do that. But let's just be clear. The Democrats have taken a position. They will not identify the point at which there should be any protection all the way up until birth. That is wrong, and we cannot stand for that.
All right, Governor DeSantis, thank you. Ambassador Haley, let me have you weigh in. Former President Trump has consistently blamed the abortion issue and how Republican candidates have talked about it for their electoral losses. How do you see the path forward?
You know, I've said it before. I think you have to be honest with the American people. This is a personal issue for every woman and every man. I am unapologetically pro-life, not because the Republican Party tells me to be, but because my husband Michael was adopted and I had trouble having both of my children. So I'm surrounded by blessings. Having said that, when you look post-Roe, a wrong was made right. They took it out of the hands of unelected justices and they put it in the hands of the people. And now we're seeing states vote. And what I'll tell you is, as much as I'm pro-life, I don't judge anyone for being pro-choice, and I don't want them to judge me for being pro-life. So when we're looking at this, there are some states that are going more on the pro-life side. I welcome that. There are some states that are going more on the pro-choice side. I wish that wasn't the case, but the people decided. But when it comes to the federal law, which is what's being debated here, be honest, it's going to take 60 Senate votes, a majority of the House, and a president to sign it. So no, we haven't had 60 Senate votes in over 100 years. We might have 45 pro-life senators. So no Republican president can ban abortions any more than a Democrat president can ban these state laws. So let's find consensus. Let's agree on how we can ban late-term abortions. Let's make sure we encourage adoptions and good quality adoptions. Let's make sure we make contraception accessible. Let's make sure that none of these state laws put a woman in jail or give her the death penalty for getting an abortion. Let's focus on how to save as many babies as we can and support as many moms as we can and stop the judgment. We don't need to divide America over this issue anymore.
There's a lot of weakness there. There's a lot of weakness in some of the things she said that is just skating out of it. However, I do think that she is being honest about the fact that federally nothing's going to happen. You don't have the votes. No Republican president is going to have the votes to do anything federally. So it's a moot question. It belongs in the states.
The problem is...
No, I disagree. It's a federal question.
Why do you think it is?
Human rights are a federal constitutional question, not a state question. A state does not have the right to determine that a person, for a certain reason, is not granted human rights.
I would agree with that. However, if you can't do anything and the status quo is what it is, what do you do?
Well, that's actually the Roe standard, was that it was a question of the federal government to determine whether or not a baby was alive, and they came to the determination that post viability, there's really no question, but it's much more complicated than I'd be able to answer to right now. My point is simply, if we allow the states to determine who is deserving of human rights, then buckle up, California.
Oh yeah, no, I know. I mean, that's sort of the really amazing thing about federalism is that people will get to see naturally what the end result of the Democrats' ideology is in a place like California. Because if you just say, hey, we're going to take a more federalist approach, we're going to say states' rights is just the end all be all, California will turn into hell. And maybe that's what their voters need to see.
Yeah, like states' rights on the issue of abortion is a pro-choice position.
Like a video of a 9-month-old baby
when you're
being
saying
aborted.
that in California they're allowed to get abortions whenever they want, that's a national pro-choice position in my opinion.
I don't want them to. I'm just saying in reality, the federal government's never going to do anything about it.
Local jurisdictions can decide whether or not they allow abortions or not, or you say abortions are banned. That's my point.
Yeah.
So when a lot of people on the right are like, yes, it's a state question, it's like, that's kind of pro-choice of you to say, well, if you vote for it, you can do it.
I think it's just realistic because we know we don't have the votes. We know we don't have 60 senators who are going to get on board.
It's not just about the votes. It's the fact that honestly, like, it's not the idea of banning abortion totally is not popular enough, and it's a loser.
Yeah.
And as long as Republicans are out there saying that they want to ban abortion on any level, even for local stuff, that's going to translate not to just the specific areas, but that's what people are going to think broadly about the Republican Party.
And
if we elect Republicans, there will be abortion bans, and they're going to continue to lose.
The answer is for Republicans to say, we think the government should help facilitate abortions for anyone who wants it, and then look dead at the liberals and say, do you need help?
Hey, we got the president speaking.
Honest about where he stood. And I think you should be honest, not making a political calculus, but to say, if a bill is served up, would you sign it? Here's my view on this. Speaking as a man, they say men have trouble speaking on this issue. I don't think we need to be that way. It was my home state of Ohio, I'm upset about this, yesterday, that passed a constitutional amendment that now effectively codifies a right to abortion all the way up to the time of birth without parental consent. Why? It's not that Republican cultural losing. The Republicans did not have an alternative
it's a response,
amendment
though.
or vision
It's
on the table.
totally a response.
I know Ohio. I was born, raised, and I lived there. It's representative of the country. If in the state of Ohio we talked about access to contraception, adoption, and also here's the missing ingredient in this movement, sexual responsibility for men. We live in an era of reliable genetic paternity tests that are 100% reliable. So we can say men deserve more responsibility. So we can tell women we're all in this together. It's not men's rights versus women's rights. It's about human rights. And I come back to that case that Clarence Thomas spoke of. A pregnant woman walking down the street. She's assaulted. The unborn child dies in that assault. You find me one person in this country who says that that criminal does not deserve liability for that death. You won't find one.
Yep.
That says we share the same instincts on this issue, but we require, I believe, a different generation of leadership
thank you.
to actually lead us forward and unite the country on this
Thank you.
Honesty.
Thank you, Mr. Ramaswamy.
That was a great
Governor
answer.
Christie, as
And I would say,
federal limits
in places
are
like
important.
Tennessee, as much as I've heard people saying abortion is unpopular in a place like Tennessee, being pro-life is very popular. It is broadly popular to protect babies' lives, and it should be everywhere. The problem is the Republican Party is not taking a real stance. It's all over the place.
I kind of want to prove sentience of the fetus. If you could somehow use a neural net or something to see the intelligence in these things when they're at 1 month or 2 months, that would
I
help me a
said
lot.
we should show high school students what an actual abortion looks like during sex ed. If they could watch the procedure where a baby is ripped limb from limb and then sucked out, they would have a big issue with it. You've seen these videos where you can watch them on YouTube where somebody has shown this who says they're 100% pro-choice, they have no problem with abortion, they watch the video, they go pale as a ghost, and they change their view on the spot from watching what is actually done to a baby.
In my home state of New Jersey, it goes up to 9 months that you get an abortion. I find that morally reprehensible, but that is what the people of our state have voted for. And we should not short circuit that process until every state's people have the right to weigh in on it. But here's the bigger issue, Kirsten. The bigger issue is, and Tim began to touch on this, we're not pro-life for the whole life. To be pro-life for the whole life means that the life of a 16-year-old drug addict on the floor of the county lockup is precious and we should get treatment for her to restore her life. The 52-year-old who's drug addicted should make sure that any of his children who he's passed that addiction on to are treated well too. Pro-life's not just in the womb, Kirsten, it's for the whole life.
What he's doing right now is actually giving credence to Democrats, what they've said for many years. I mean, this is the definition of cowardice on display. When you go and you feed into what the Democrats have lied and said about every one of your voters, you don't deserve one person's vote, because these people have admonished good people who just want to protect life by pretending that they don't care about those babies after they're born. Every pro-life person I know cares about that baby after it's born and would be the first person, if they were asked, to help that child.
But the good news is it was Chris Christie, and he's a failure anyway, so
That's
he's
true.
not going to win anything.
That's true. I was angry, and then you reminded me of that. I feel better now. Thank you for bringing me back
I feel like
to my
the only
peace.
logical end result is a nationwide abortion ban.
Full ban.
That's not me saying what I want to happen. That's what I'm saying. I don't see a logical pathway towards anything other than that. Under the argument that either this country goes the direction of the removal of human rights based on numerous factors. So this would be like the reverting of the 14th Amendment, or it's extended to all life. So this is one of the big questions of the Civil War. Well, who's deserving of human rights? And they said, okay, some states will ban it and some won't, because we're a nation of a bunch of states and everyone can choose their own thing. Then everyone started shooting each other. Bleeding Kansas was directly a conflict over slavery, whether or not the state would be a slave state or a free state. And then ultimately it's like, okay, the federal government needs to answer this question. The 14th Amendment comes into play and says all humans, they get human rights, among other things. Now they're actually arguing a human being in the womb does not have human rights. And Roe v. Wade was a federal answer to the question, but it needs to be codified by Congress, probably not the Supreme Court. So it's probably the right move for the Supreme Court to say this is not for us to decide, but it's for the federal government, for Congress to say we make this determination, unless we do a constitutional amendment. So I believe the federal government needs to have a position on whether or not an unborn baby gets constitutional rights, even the right to bear arms, even as ludicrous as it sounds, all human rights protected for the unborn. I believe that the only logical question is going to be that,
I would say a convention of states and changing the actual constitution to add a new amendment is more likely than our Congress doing something federally. I just don't think they'll ever agree on it. They'll ever have the numbers, and that's the problem.
The 14th Amendment says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction therein.
Read the whole thing. Read the whole
state
thing.
wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce law that shall abridge the privilege or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person of his jurisdiction.
Okay, and now...
Yeah, but you're talking about persons born or naturalized in the United States.
Read it again.
I just read it.
Read it again.
Nor deny to any person within his jurisdiction on the equal protections of the law.
Okay, so let's...
Hold up. Show me where I'm wrong. Show me what I'm missing here.
Right. We've gone over this like 27 times.
Persons born or naturalized in the United States.
All persons born or naturalized in the United States are subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state where they reside. Period. Next clause. Yeah. No state shall make or enforce any law that shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life. These are separate clauses.
Yes, separate clauses, totally different statements. So it's no longer about if you're born or not. It's just saying a state has no right.
Let me clarify.
To do that.
Non-citizens in this country are guaranteed due process. So when it says all persons born or naturalized are citizens, that has nothing to do with whether or not you are granted due process. Non-citizens, tourists to this country have free speech and they are granted due process rights when it comes to violations of the law. That would mean, yes, unborn babies would not be citizens, but if they are persons, they cannot be deprived of their life, liberty, or property without due process.
Are they persons?
Absolutely.
Is that just an assumption or is that a legal definition?
I'm saying the Supreme Court will have to answer that question. It is not a state question to answer. The states, don't have a right to say that certain people are or are not persons. The federal government must do it and must answer its own amendment. Here we go.
Didn't have time to address and why you and not former President Trump would be the party's best choice to tackle these important issues. You each have a minute. Senator Scott, we'll start with you. 1 minute.
There's a crisis that is growing in our nation, and that crisis is cultural and spiritual. We need a renewal, a great awakening. We should reject the left's valueless, faithless, fatherless society. We should turn back to faith, patriotism, and individual
won't mute him this time.
responsibility. We should stop choosing victimhood and start choosing victory. We should stop kneeling in protest and start kneeling in prayer. There are basic truths that built this country. If you're able-bodied in America, you work. If you take out a loan, you pay it back. If you commit a violent crime, you go to jail. And if God made you a man, you play sports against men. I do not just want to...
Audience, please.
I do not just want to win the battle against
He was so
Joe
excited to
Biden.
get that
I want us
applause.
together to win the
He waited
war.
all night for that.
The war
I'm
for our
happy for
conservative
him.
values that changed my life.
Senator Scott, thank you.
and built
Governor
this
Christie,
country.
you have
That's
1
why I'm
minute
asking you for your vote.
Thank you for hosting tonight. Listen, it's a gift to be an American. And I'm running for President of the United States because I'm tired. I'm tired of seeing the division. I'm tired of seeing the anger.
Lose weight.
And I can see
I
in
don't
the
want a
eyes
tired
of
guy as my
Americans
president.
their exhaustion. Their
The
exhaustion
reel of
from
all
the
of us
petty,
talking about him
personal
would be really
politics
fun.
that have taken over this country over
I'm
the last number of
fatigued.
years.
You're
I'm
tired
running for
because you're
president to be a
carrying a lot of
president
weight
of
around, buddy.
consequence,
Chris
to
Christie.
do the big things, to make sure that America's role in the world stays number one, that we stand up for our friends and allies around the world, and we stand up for what we believe in right here at home. And it's not to eliminate our differences. Our differences has always been our strength as a country, not our weakness. But you can't truly say you love America
Evidence?
unless you're ready to open up your heart to every American. I'm going to open up my heart to every American as president, and I will make sure that I return honesty, integrity to the Oval Office. We deserve and should accept nothing less.
Governor, thank you very much. Let's go to Mr. Ramaswamy now. Your 1 minute.
We've talked a lot about foreign wars tonight, but we're in the middle of a war right here at home. It's a war not between black and white or Democrat and Republican. It's between those of us who believe in our founding ideals and love this country and a fringe minority who hates the United States of America. And I think it's going to take a commander-in-chief to lead us to victory in that war, who first of all knows that we're in a war. Second of all, can't be captured by the special interests along the way. But third is from the next generation, somebody with fresh legs to lead us to victory. I'll shut down the deep state. I'll declare economic independence from China.
Yeah.
I'll keep us out of World War III and then revive national pride in this country. I also want to close with one message to the Democrat Party. End this farce that Joe Biden is going to be your nominee. President of the United States. He's a puppet for the managerial class. So have the guts to step up and be honest about who you're actually going to put up.
Vivek is
so we
the
can have
best.
a nice debate. Biden should step aside, end his candidacy now. So we can see whether it's Newsom or Michelle Obama or whoever else.
Yes!
Nice,
It's
dude.
Newsom, but yes, I agree.
Very good. Vivek, in my, I don't
He
know
really
what it's gonna
took
pan
out
to
a lot
be.
of them tonight.
Yeah, the V in the chat, I
you
think
have 1
Vivek
minute for
won.
your
V in the chat. 'cause he-
I don't know how it's going to
Thank
pan
you.
out, like
The
who's going
world
to
is on
leave and
fire.
stuff, but it
We have
really
a war
does
in
seem
Europe.
like he's
We've
got
a war in the Middle East.
his finger
We've got
on the
China
pulse.
on the march.
He mopped the floor.
It is
That's
very
fine.
important
Great.
that we know how to defend our freedoms and how to defeat terrorism and socialism. We have to know the difference between good and evil. We have to know the difference between right and wrong. We need to know that a strong America doesn't start wars, a strong America prevents wars. And the way we can focus on that is to make sure we go back to the soul of America and be strong and proud again. And we can't do that. We can't win the fights of the 21st century with politicians from the 20th century. We have to move forward. And we can do this. I know we can do this. So join our movement. Go to NikkiHaley.com and we will once again show what America that's strong and proud looks like. God bless.
Ambassador, thank you.
No, thank you.
Yikes.
I'll pass on that one. She follows me on
Sanders, you're
Twitter,
closing. You have
too.
1 minute.
Maybe not after
We must
tonight, but
reverse our
She's a cool interview. All these,
That
I'd like
is
to
going
interview all these.
require leadership. I will take the hits. I will take the arrows. I will take the barbs.
Yeah, you
Because it's
will.
not about me. It's about you. It's not about the past. It's about your future. We are going to fight for you. I am going to win for you and your family, and I'm going to lead this country's revival. As a veteran of the Iraq War and in the Navy, I will always put service above self as president. As the father of 3 young kids, I'm going to ensure that this country is left to the next generation in better shape than we found it. And as the governor of Florida, I delivered on all my promises, and you can trust me to deliver for you as the President of the United States. I am asking for your vote. I'll be a nominee that will be able to win the election. I will be a leader you can be proud of, and as your president, I will not let you down. God bless you.
Governor DeSantis, thank you.
Is that it?
Mr. Holt going to take us out?
That is going to conclude our...
All right.
Thanks, Les. Cool, don't care.
95% say Vivek won.
He crushed.
Ron's got 3%. Nikki has got 1, and Chris has got 1. I didn't exclude Tim Scott from the poll to make like a dig at Tim Scott. It's just YouTube only allows 4 categories.
It was pretty clear.
We'll just say he had 1% too. If Chris Christie got 1,
Nikki
then
got
he probably got 1.
Right. Look, let me say, I like Tim Scott way more than Chris Christie. Way more than Nikki Haley.
Yeah.
But he should not be on a presidential debate stage.
It was like he was thinking about what to say next. Like his words were being like, did you notice that?
Yeah,
like what I was just doing?
no,
He's trying to
definitely.
get
And I
the-
think he forgot some stuff. You know, it was just,
Yeah.
I don't think he was fully prepared for some of those questions.
Here's
you
an
know?
emotional, the appeal to emotion to like he's taking his time with every word that he says. So it means
I think it's the
something.
wrong time in history for
wrong
that too,
cadence.
because
Wrong
people
cadence.
have less and less attention span. Like
Oh,
even
yeah.
myself, I know when I'm watching videos or podcasts or whatever, I turn it on to where it's 1.5 times as fast.
Yeah.
I'm listening way faster than I ever have in my life. A lot of people are in the same boat. So
Yeah,
when you
same
hear
here.
somebody talking really slowly like this, it
Just
starts
boring.
to feel like they don't know what they want to say.
Oh, I've noticed
You
that
know?
on this show as a co-host because Tim will talk really fast, and then if I come in like this, everyone's like, "Shut up, shut up!" And it's like, "No, talk faster, get it out of the way."
Everybody says that about you, Ian. Like I didn't want to tell you, but it's
my vibe, baby.
It's been a big conversation, you know, behind your back. No, I'm just kidding.
We're going to read some super chats.
Oh, yeah.
So we're not going to have a members only uncensored show tonight because it was a debate night and, they go long. So we're just going to read super chats. And YouTube's been doing this weird thing where it's not loading properly.
Yeah, I know what's going on.
So I
with
didn't
that, man.
refresh. So we got the first 2 super chats here. We started a little early. Clint Torres says, "Howdy, people."
Hey, Clint.
Clint with the first super chat. Look at me says, "I'm the captain now." Well, maybe
Nice.
number 1.
Look at me.
All right. And here we go. Goldilocks Production says, "Anyone who raises a foreign nation's flag at our Capitol in front of the White House should be considered traitors. Only the American flag should be should wave there. Period." Right on.
Interesting.
We're gonna refresh it and hopefully get all of the super chats to load now without because it cuts off the early ones when we reload it. Vivek's debate performance may be the best debate performance I have ever seen.
He pulled a Bill
in my
Clinton. Like Clinton in his first debate was lame, and then came in and he must have had great review of his own performance and came in and just smashed it in 1992. And now that's similar to what Vivek did.
I don't know that you'll ever beat that moment where Trump said because you'd be in jail.
That was
So good.
You know?
That's
I
true.
mean,
that's
a
true.
tough one to beat.
But I mean, like, holistically, like, from start to finish, let's just say that Vivek had the low blow haymakers to Donald Trump's massive jab right
knockout.
in the face.
Yeah,
knockout.
The
slam.
only way you could do totally better is if you pulled the same thing and you actually put her in jail. You know,
He should have done
that
it.
would be an improvement. However, hard to beat that moment.
I think it's, I mean, honestly, Jesse Kelly was talking or was tweeting today. He said something about talking about Trump. And it's his opinion that Trump's going to go to jail. And I think that he's probably right.
I agree.
And I don't know if there's normies that are going to vote for, a president that's in jail.
I think there are.
Oh, I don't think that there's enough to
If it's
to
binary.
get him over. Well, I mean, it'll be the president. It'll be Donald Trump versus whoever. And I would personally prefer to see someone like Vivek in the spot because he's not in jail than to see Donald Trump running from jail. If Donald Trump doesn't go to jail, then I think that Donald Trump has a better shot. I think if Donald Trump does go to jail, I think that just puts normies off because there's so many normies.
They're just not smart enough.
Yeah,
They
and
think he went to jail. I can't vote for him.
Yeah,
Okay,
this
so-
is not my preference. I'm just saying that this is what it seems most likely to me.
We have and a correction too. It was the stream that we had of Trump had 7,700.
Okay, cool.
So Delamar says Trump had 130K and the debate had 70.
I wonder how that's.
But I think the issue is, are we combining everything? Or are you talking about like Trump's core stream? Because we had Trump Jr.'s channel and it wasn't loading properly.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Super Dank says DeSantis is the heel and Vivek is the babyface. This is a WWE match. Correct.
I mean, that's pretty much all of politics at this point.
Dave Rubin tweeted that Vivek is such an insufferable prick and he's getting ratioed really, really hard for it. Look, man.
Dude,
Rubin
just got baited into giving Vivek a lot of
No,
publicity.
I think the people who hitched their wagon to Ron DeSantis are probably sweating bullets.
Well, you've got to
It's
be
like, what
kind
do
of
you do?
upset with these performances. And also, I mean, Dave's a smart guy. I think that he knows deep down the campaign has not been run the way that it should have been run if you really wanted to have a great shot here. Vivek, on the other hand, has set himself up well, whether it's his team's doing or his own. I don't know. But somebody there has set himself up well in the event that something does happen with President Trump. Because I think a lot of the people who support Trump are going to shift that direction should something like that happen, unless it's somebody who comes in late. I don't know if they'll be able to get on the ballot, though, in that case. So there's a lot up in the air, but I do know that the way they've run the campaign, they're not set up well to take in Trump voters in any event.
Yeah.
It's just, there's a lot of hard feelings and stuff, and I don't think it's going to turn out well. And I think if you're somebody who hitched yourself really early on to Ron, you're probably upset by the way things have been run, and it makes you a little more testy with situations like this.
I think that's another strong point with Vivek is because he's not attacking Trump, everyone kind of feels like he's the guy that's like, he's going for VP or whatever, your prediction might want to be. But because of his take on Trump and because he's been very, passive towards Trump, he leaves the door open for all the Trump voters that if they're not going to vote for Trump, and Trump's, I talked before about Trump's floor. It's very, very solid. There are diehard.
His bottom is solid.
His bottom is solid, yes.
Rock solid.
But because of that, if Trump isn't in the running, it's very easy for those people to slide over into Vivek's camp. And because of the fact that what Vivek is talking about is very similar to Trump's policies. There's not a lot of daylight between them. And I think that Vivek is probably more informed on the policies than Trump is.
It's
Trump
pretty
is
much
all
the same policies, but more eloquently stated.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's like, it was a hard sell to sell Trump policies to, let's say, somebody who went to an Ivy League or somebody who was in a tech startup that is, doing some innovative thing. Vivek can communicate to those people the exact same policy that they just scoffed at and treated like it was crazy coming from Trump. They hear it from him and they go, oh, that's really smart. And it's not a byproduct of somehow the policy gets better. It's just that the communication is clear to that person. But meanwhile, Vivek, he's also still communicating to your typical Trump-based voter like me. Like I voted for Trump both times. I fully understand in the same way and respect that I did with Trump. And I think that's why he pulls in some interesting different people that were pushed away maybe by Trump in the beginning. So it's interesting. But I mean, Trump is obviously still the leader. I don't think he's going to prison in a way that would prevent him from being able to become president.
Let me read this from Char Dietz. He says, I'm pro-life, but I also believe in choice for others. God gives all mankind free will, and I think we can have our own beliefs and values. What did it say? But bits up
But
to
it's.
But it's. I see the B was an accidental typo. We meant to hit the space bar. To each individual. I completely disagree. You cannot have one state being like, it's not murder if you kill a person from this background. It's not murder. You can't have that.
Yeah.
You can't have one state be like, we think this is not a person. It's like, are they a person or not? Answer the question.
Yeah, I'm looking at natural person. It's the natural person because there are other persons that are corporations. But if are babies at 2 months in the womb considered natural persons legally, that's really what it comes down to.
Federal government needs to have an answer for that. And my attitude is, I'm not traditional pro-life. I'm traditional pro-choice. And while I think abortion is wrong, I think there's very difficult constitutional questions in how you balance the rights of two individuals sharing one body. And then ultimately, I just want to encourage Democrats to get the abortions they want to get. Democrats and liberals and leftists, I will help facilitate their trips.
See, I don't want them to get abortions. I want their kids to find a different pathway than their parents did. I want them to be able to have all the success and happiness in the world. I thought this was sort of a a good little nugget from what has been a difficult debate for a lot of people, and there's a lot of truth in it. Elon Musk said women in the West have been taught that an accidental pregnancy is the worst thing that could possibly happen to them. Thus, they strongly oppose abortion bans as being an existential threat. Many men also fear that they will be unable to have fun if abortion is outlawed. These things are all unequivocally true, okay? And I responded to him and said, the tragedy is that kids will fulfill most people more than anything else they do in life. And Elon responded, absolutely. And I think that's something that if I could communicate to any young person today who has never been in the room when the ultrasound happens, who has not been there and seen a child be born into the world, who has not been there and taught their kid how to ride a bike or any of these things, I would say, reject this idea you've been sold that this is some clump of cells. Realize this is an extension of you. This is your opportunity to do better. All those things in your life that you feel like you haven't done quite well enough, or you feel like you wish you could be more, your child can be. They're a clean slate. And that doesn't mean you project all of your failures and say, oh, this person needs to be the betterment of all my failures, but understand that they can be greatness. And to cancel that out and extinguish it before they've ever had the chance, I mean, you're not only impeding on their ability and their right to life and their right to become the greatest thing they can be, but you're hurting yourself.
Patrick Bet David tweets, not only was Vivek the unanimous winner, a star was born today. He shined.
Nice.
He was loose. He was comfortable yet intense. He even gave credit to DeSantis and Tim Scott multiple times, a good balance between a fighter, leader, and synergist. He kept going to DeSantis on each break and spark a conversation with him. Another sign of synergist. He kept giving different perspectives, changing definition of overdose to terrorist poisoning. He was so captivating tonight that if you watch the replay, you'd notice even his opponents impressed with his answers.
Yeah, he framed everything really, really well. He was in control of the framing of all the questions when he was answering. Like whatever they brought to him, he made sure that it was he was answering in a way that made it understandable for the average person and also was on his terms.
Yeah.
Really now asks, why y'all only listening to 3/5 of what Tim Scott says? I'll tell you.
Because he talked at 3/5 the speed.
No, that's not it at all. It's because I certainly understand the joke. But why were we muting Tim Scott? He wasn't actually giving answers. Sorry. After like a couple of the questions where they're like, what would you do about the border? I would secure the border because the border needs to be secured. And then once I secure the border, I would deal with immigration in the country. I'm like, all right, off.
Yeah, it's boilerplate.
It's worse than boilerplate. It's like, what would you do about the problem of lawlessness at the border? I'd bring the law. Next question. Okay, like you didn't answer the question, dude.
Yeah.
I wanted to hear people talk about flying spy drones over the border, like constant just drone surveillance over the border. That's what we need.
They do that.
You said a debate with a trade worker.
We don't do that. We know that they're already coming. There's no. It's not like we don't need to figure out.
They do that.
Yeah,
I wanted them to talk about it.
They have drones at the southern border. They fly all the time, nonstop, and at the Canadian border as well.
We need to have a debate where you're on stage and you're just shouting out what you're thinking.
Yes. Graphene, hydrogen fuel. These are things Vivek needs to talk about on the next one.
No, but I did notice that what that person said in the super chat, that the opponents, you can notice with the smiles.
That was Patrick Bet David.
Oh, it was. Okay, you notice with the smiles that you'd see some of the opponents smile after he finished with his answer in like a way that's like you can't hold it in because you're like, damn, that was good. That happened a couple times.
Like these people be in Vivek's cabinet kind of energy.
I don't know if that's going to happen
with Obama. I think they really liked him on stage when they were debating 2008.
Yeah.
And Patrick Bet David, for the record, was there in the room. That's why, of course, he saw between commercial breaks what he was seeing.
Do you think Hillary Clinton ever really liked Barack Obama? I don't think so.
No,
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No way.
I don't think there was real fond feelings there.
I'm so excited to take these debates to the next level of scientific accuracy, and really talk about technology that is the solution to the energy sector and the defense sector. Like Department of Defense is heavily invested in this graphene production out of Rice University and the hydrogen fuel production.
Yeah.
These are things that the average person, their eyes are going to gloss over, and they're going to be like,
yeah, you need to let people know.
People understand kitchen table issues. If you have like Vivek is very, very knowledgeable when it comes to like science and technology and stuff like that. He's owned a biotech company or whatever. If he started talking like that, he would lose everybody.
You got to go slow.
You have to talk to people. You have to go to people where they are, and just being like, "This is my plan for the future," and it has all these things that most people don't even know what you're talking about,
and not be condescending.
Yeah, like it's not a good way to do it. Vivek's approach, I think, tonight was really, really good. Like I said earlier, he framed everything in a way that people can understand.
Exactly.
And he was clear and concise.
That was the most important thing that he really needed in his campaign. I think before he always seemed like he was like the college boy type person. This time I think he was way more relatable, and he got people. He had some gotchas, you know? So.
Yeah.
Remember when Matt Gaetz was on this show last? Yeah. When was that? That was like a month ago, I guess, right?
About a month.
Yeah.
Was it?
No, it
on
was
stage.
It was over a month.
We had him on stage on the Friday episode. Yeah, what?
It was a
3
week.
months
So
ago?
this is like 5 weeks now. When he was here, I smashed my pinky in between the chair and the table, so that's why my pinky is discolored.
Oh, snap.
And so I'm just like counting the days since Matt Gaetz has been here by the length of my fingernail.
Have you soaked it in Epsom salt?
No.
If water and Epsom salt, that'll
There's a
help
hole in it. It's dented, and blood is coming out the back.
Sweet.
Ian wants you to put graphene in it.
Yeah, I have some right here, actually, now that you're talking about it. Have you ever seen it in person? It's like black powder, but like sand.
He wants you to stick your finger in there.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that would be good or...
All right, Alexander Scarpacci says, Vivek should be Trump's chief of staff. He needs to be continuously in Trump's ear. Yeah, dude.
That would be killer, actually.
And
if Trump is president, that'd be killer.
And if anything, I kind of feel like Vivek, everything he's saying, it's like you got these older neocons who are talking about BS garbage no one cares about, except for maybe older neocons. And then Vivek is basically saying, remember me in 2028.
Yeah. And maybe Trump sends him to the UN, you know? Where Nikki went last time, and this time just burn it down.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, look, dude's a billion, almost. He's half a billionaire. He's what his net worth is like
650 million or something like that.
I don't think a guy like that wants to just be an ambassador.
Nah, VP or president.
If there was a stage where I think there's a job out there, I don't know which one it'd be. Maybe it's governor or senate
Chief of staff.
or something like that, because he's in Ohio, isn't he?
Yeah.
So I could see him trying in the next Ohio governor election. I don't know when that is, because I think DeWine was just elected again in 2022. I'd have to double check that. 2020 maybe, or 2022. So maybe that's the future, you know?
2019.
2019.
He was, wait, American Public Attorney since, 2019 he was elected as the 70th governor of Ohio.
Yeah. So maybe that's the future move, because I could see him doing a great job in that position as a governor and kind of proving the model of his leadership on a state level. And then, you know,
I've got a feeling that he would become like a personality on talk show personality instead.
I could see that too.
Only because he said he doesn't want anything than the best. Like he's not interested in anything other than. But a governor's a pretty cool role.
Before he ran, he was preparing to roll out a podcast, wasn't he?
He does have a podcast.
He does have one. Okay.
Yeah,
it's actually very good.
Yeah,
I remember seeing it. It's on YouTube.
I mean, dude, he had the opening and the closing. It was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there was an answer he gave that was bad, you know?
No, I didn't like that he interrupted Nikki. I didn't like that he was interrupting. He didn't have to do that. You get powerful enough, you don't have to interrupt anymore. At least you think you did the right thing.
I didn't mind it.
It works when Donald Trump does it.
I think sometimes, like, if you wait too long, it starts to feel like, oh, they had to sit there and think out this response. In a debate format, I don't have a problem with it. If you're in a room having a respectful conversation with somebody, yes, wait for them to finish what they have to say. Respond. In a debate, live on TV, where people want to see your leadership and quick thinking ability, I see no problem cutting in and saying, hey, no, I'm going to correct this on the spot, you know?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, we don't have that many super chats, so...
Yeah, kind of surprised.
Yeah.
People are so invested in the show.
I mean, it's mostly just Vivek, and fire emojis and stuff like that.
Trump Ramaswamy.
Yeah, so I think, look, this is a special debate night show. We usually don't do members-only shows because we go into Super Chats afterwards, but I don't know. I guess it's the debate's over. I feel like we, I got to say it. I don't care for the lesser-known GOP debates. I insult them routinely. I didn't want to do this one. I was even talking to Luke yesterday, and I'm like, I don't care about the debate, dude. Like let's talk about the news. There's like the manifesto stuff. But I'm glad we did watch it. Because Vivek was epic, and that was pretty awesome. But I guess, that being said, we'll just wind things up. So smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, but most importantly, watch Infringed. We're not going to have the members only uncensored because, as I mentioned, usually when there's like a speech or a presidential State of the Union or something, we just run through the show and then it goes long or whatever. But if you're looking for something to do, watch Infringed. Really, you got to watch. It's an hour and 40 minutes. Maybe it's too late for you to check it out. But seriously, share it with your friends. We're going to be doing way more. This is an expensive project for us. The budget is I don't know, $250,000 probably is what we're aiming towards right now, what we're looking at in terms of production and marketing. And we're probably going to be going higher than that depending on what we can accomplish with it. I think running the commercials for it itself is helping win the culture war and defend gun rights. So, you can watch that at timcast.com on the front page. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL. You can follow me personally at Timcast. Robby, do you want to shout anything out?
You can follow me at Robby Starbuck or sub to me on any of those channels. See clips coming out from our documentary later this year.
I am Phil That Remains on X or Twix. I am Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. You can follow us on Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, YouTube, the internet.
And I just got confirmation from Luke Rudkowski. We Are Change. He's going to have Vivek Ramaswamy on the show tomorrow.
3 p.m.
3 p.m. Yeah. Subscribe to We Are Change on YouTube and keep an eye open for that. And
Did he confirm the heels of...
He posted a picture.
Yeah. Excellent.
Right.
And then also subscribe on Rumble, rumble.com/wearechange, because they usually take the second half of the show over there and get down and dirty. So you hear the real stuff there. I'm Ian Crossland, and go check out, we were talking a lot about energy tonight. That was a big part of the theme of saving the world. Check out my YouTube channel. I interviewed Yechezkel Moskowitz, who's talking about reusing 95% of our spent nuclear fuel to create closed systems so that we don't have to worry about mining it from Kazakhstan or Canada. We can actually just reuse what we got and continue our nuclear productions capacity. And also, that's episode number 4. Episode number 2 was James Tour talking about retrofitting our economy into a hydrogen-based fuel system and mass-producing graphene with which we can build the wall and many walls and many ships for our Navy. Very exciting. Subscribe to me on YouTube, and I'll see you later.
I am Serge.com. I agree. Let's build that northern wall against the maple curtain. We need to get something out there because these Canadians are just, going to keep pouring over the border. So I'm Serge.com. Yeah, let's deal with this frostback problem. And I'm just kidding. I really am just kidding. I have a lot of good Canadian friends.
We just had some Canadians on the other day.
When you get off today, they're going to go, hey.
Yeah. I hope they apologize to me.
Wasn't very polite.
No, they're gonna say, I'm sorry I bothered you by being Canadian.
They should apologize.
All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. We'll be back tomorrow, and we'll see y'all then.